Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome you all to day 2 of the 6th Equal Opportunities Conference on Sustainable Leadership and Technology Innovation Management, organized by Ahliauniversitybh in collaboration with the University of Business and Technology, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Brunel University, London. This important and timely conference brings together academics and researchers and provides them with the opportunity to meet people, exchange ideas, share and discuss their impactful research, and most importantly, to get inspired. I would also like to extend a special welcome to our keynote speakers, presenters, and participants of the 6th Equal Opportunities Conference. Before we start the day, I would like to inspire you with a quote by Stuart Brand, an author and innovative thinker who once said, "We can see the past, but we cannot influence it. We can influence the future, but we cannot see it." Let us all be guided by the things we will learn today and will hear throughout the conference and be able to see and influence the future. And now, I would like to start this event on a high note by inviting Dr. Isra Al-Dhan, the chair of the Equal Opportunities Conference Organizing Committee, to present her welcoming speech. A warm welcome for Dr. Isra.
Oopsie. Very good morning. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you all again for the second day of our Equal Opportunities Conference, our 6th Equal Opportunities Conference, with the title of Sustainable Leadership and Technology Innovation Management. I would like to welcome you again for those who are with us in person, and I would like also to welcome our virtual participants who are joining us from all around the world today virtually. Of course, I would like to state something in very short. Yesterday, we really enjoyed different keynote speakers, different presentations, different papers with a high quality that really enlightened us in relation to different fields related to business, technology, management, and sustainability. And today, we are looking forward to hear more from these papers from different authors around the world that will definitely add a value to our societal impact as well as to our research strategy. I would like to also extend a special thanking and appreciation to our partners, Brunel University London and University of Business and Technology in Jeddah, for joining us to make this remarkable and successful. And of course, I would like to thank our leadership, Professor Abdullah Al-Hawaj and Professor Mansour Al-Ali, for making this happen, and a special appreciation for our Dean, Professor Alam Hamdan, for making this a successful event. I won't take more time, however, I just would like to give a quick reminders for our virtual participants that there are different parallel sessions. Please join the rooms according to your sessions, as well as there are different parallel sessions in person. Therefore, make sure that you are selecting the right session as per the agenda. Thank you very much, and we look forward seeing you at the closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Isra, for your welcoming speech. And now join me in welcoming Professor Mansour Al-Ali, the president of Ahliauniversity and one of the biggest advocates of research, to give us his opening remarks for the Equal Opportunities Conference. A warm welcome for Professor Mansour Al-Ali.
Assalamu alaikum, good morning. Yesterday I had a written speech and I was criticized. They said I was reading it like the news. So today I decided to be, maybe I'll try to be a bit less boring if I can. Less boring if I can. The truth is, first of all, I want to welcome you all and really thank you for taking the time to share with us the objectives of the United Nations, of all governments of the world, to empowering women and about gender equality. There is a lot to be done in this direction. It's not a new field. Yesterday we enjoyed Dr. Haneen's presentation about the change and the transformation in Saudi Arabia. We were all enlightened by this progress, this fast progress that is taking place in our, we call Saudi Arabia our great sister state, or our big sister state. Bahrain has for a long time empowered women. And the creation of the Supreme Council for Women, chaired by our First Lady, the King's wife, Sheikha Sabika bint Ibrahim Al Khalifa, has made a lot of significant difference to women in Bahrain, to families, to children, to a wide variety. Now, for example, divorced women get a benefit, an allowance. Widows get an allowance. Orphans get an allowance. That's all support to the families. So it is really happening in action, not by talking through different media and painting a different picture. In Bahrain, I'm really happy and proud to say that a real thing on the ground is happening to empowering women. Now, obviously, a long time ago, I was in Milan in Italy, and there was a very pretty young woman working with the European Union. And she presented a paper about only, it said basically the conclusion of it was, only 17% of leaders, CEOs in Europe, in the European Union, before Britain left. So there'll be less now, there'll be less now, before Brexit. Only 17% of CEOs were women. And at the end, there was questions and answer session, and I asked a question. I said, well, maybe that's the natural way of things, because women, they have mothers, they have babies, they have different requirements. Why push them? Because her argument is to push more CEOs more women to be CEOs. I believe the term equal opportunity is the best term. Create the policies, create the laws, give equal opportunity, give equal support, maybe a bit extra push to the women, and let them be what they can be. Create the environment. That's what I think. Now, first of all, I have a little comment. If we have people virtually, are we using Teams or Zoom? Why can't we display them so that the audience can actually... All right, let's flip between them. Maybe flip between this. I think then because there is a lot more people online, so it might be a good idea. Yeah, about 100. So please, if you can arrange for something like that, flip between them. This is the 6th Equal Opportunity Conference. This conference started as a small idea, and it was slowly growing. Started with partnership with our strategic partner, Brunel. We've been with you for so many years, and they're always here, and they're always welcome. They are more of friends really now rather than just visitors. Especially Steve Mullins, Dr. Steve Mullins. He's almost every few weeks he is here in Bahrain. He still doesn't speak any Arabic. That's the unfortunate. Now also, you saw yesterday we signed an MOU with Jeddah, the UBT, University of Business and Technology in Jeddah. They are now actually full partners with Ahliya, and we cooperate in many things, in joint publications, in many things. And this is how I think the world should move, cooperation and support for each other. We benefited a lot from the PhD with Brunel. It has made a significant impact in Bahrain and the GCC. a large number, I don't know, well over 75 PhDs have graduated so far. So, and a number of them are about gender issues. A number of the PhDs are about gender issues and empowering women. Now this conference, from what I see from the reviewers, we received well over 300 papers. I think it was 370 something. Only 150 papers were accepted. These will be published, and they will be in a proceedings, and they will be Scopus based. That's the first time. That's a new addition. It was, until last year, it was mostly from Bahrain, Brunel, and a couple of people from the GCC. Now it's international. Now I see our friend, although I can't say your name, from Austria, Udo. Yeah, it's easy, but Professor Udo, who was in the Gulf, but now he's come all the way from Austria to participate. We have people from all over. I just thought yesterday, in my boring way of reading the topics, the news, I actually had some very important points. I looked at all the papers presented to the conference, and I tried to look at the titles. What are they covering? What areas are they covering? Now we know the UN has 17 SDGs. 17 SDGs. These SDGs, according to Humanity Today, they're supposed to cover all aspects of human life. They're supposed to. One of them is gender equality or equality. One of them. I'm sure in a few years they'll identify either more or subsidiaries of each one. I'm sure. But that's what we have now, 17. And Ahliya University, for your knowledge, Ahliya University is organizing for all the universities in Bahrain the MUN, the Model United Nations. It's supposed to be by the end of February. All the universities of Bahrain will be sending students to actually enact the United Nations, and one of them is gender equality. And now we got new requests from Oman, from Kuwait, from Saudi. Inshallah, UBT will join. So anybody who is interested to come and join from any university, this Model United Nations, most likely it will be held here in Windham by end of February. There might be a possibility we postpone it till April. So it's either planned for end of February, but most likely it will be in about 28th of April. Yesterday, as I said, thank you. We have here Doris Martin. If you can maybe stand up, Doris. She's a friend, and she is the founder of MUN in Bahrain, and she trained many people, and she's a friend, and she's well known. She speaks Arabic, Bahraini, and yeah, she's one of her trainees. So thank you, Doris, for being with us today. Thank you. I will just maybe conclude by referring back to what I've just said about the types and quality of papers presented to this conference. And I looked at the titles, and I tried to suss out what each paper is. I didn't read all the papers, but just a quick look at the titles. And I realized the topics are all vital topics. I'm not going to be able to go through all of them, but I'll just give a hint about some of them. The most obvious and common one are papers about gender equality, all right? Although in Bahrain, we think the woman is more powerful than the man, but that's our view in Bahrain. And we are happy about that. I think in research, there's a paper, research should be more oriented to gender equality more. I think more can be done in that direction in terms of research. In terms of graduates' development, now we have introduced a course about gender equality in Ahliya now, started just this semester. But I believe more can be done to enable women in that direction. I think, again, in education, we should maybe talk more and add more to enabling women to be women leaders, women leadership, not just giving them short courses. Maybe within the studies, we should empower women. I'm not going to take a long time because otherwise. Who is it? Dr. Abdullah Dahlan said yesterday, we are academics like to talk and students like to listen. You're not students, but that's what he said. You know how they said they are good listeners. They're good listeners. So just bear with me just one more minute. All right? I think the government's roles and what they do in their policies, there is a paper about that. Now in Bahrain we have Tamkeen, which is empowering people to start new businesses. They've been very successful, but not as many women have become entrepreneurs as they would like. More can be done in that direction. The field of e-commerce, you always know, the business intelligence, areas of innovation management and measurement, the self-employment, sustainability, if you like. More can be done in that direction to help women. In ICT or in IT, a long time ago there was a lot of talk about women in IT. Women in IT. Until today, if you go to Microsoft or Google, you'll find a larger percentage of the coders and programmers are men. Yet, in my view, IT can be a cottage industry, meaning women can work from home, even if they are married with children. So it's an area which should be explored a little bit more, in my view. I've got here some papers talking about urban and interior designs, climate issues, technology integration, artificial intelligence. This morning I was coming here to the conference, and there was a talk on the BBC about this new chatbot or something. Chatbot, something like this. And I think it's going to change all the way it's going to change all the way we do things. And obviously there is a big opportunity for women to start that. I'm getting all kinds of signals to stop talking. But I'm getting my revenge on yesterday. Okay, so thank you very much for attending this conference. We really appreciate your presence. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mansour, for a very interesting and not boring opening remarks. Next, it gives me great pleasure to invite Professor Mary Richard, the Divisional Lead of Transdisciplinary Studies and Global Change at Ahliauniversity, London, to give us her speech. Distinguished guests, a warm welcome to Professor Mary Richard.
Okay, I'm going to be quick. And yesterday, Professor Mansour said he thought my speech was quite dense, which I'm going to interpret as a little bit boring as well. So although I have written stuff here, I'm not going to stick to script, okay, because we have got very little time. And once again, it's an enormous pleasure to be here. It's always wonderful to come to Bahrain and be a part of this particular conference. And of course, extending my huge appreciation and thanks to Professor Abdullah and Professor Mansour and the other Professor Abdullah as well. So for their support of this conference and the ongoing work that takes place to put everything together. So thank you very much for that. It's always great for us to be able to work as colleagues, and I guess that the important thing, I think, is to think about how we move these conversations on. You know, to some extent, we're here to share the research. It would be great to have some of the presenters who came to this conference in the past to be able to come back, to return, to give us updates. For instance, as Professor Mansour mentioned, there were some wonderful presentations about all sorts of areas, including things like heritage architecture, e-commerce in Oman and in Jordan. Actually getting some updates on how that's progressed would be another way of charting the progress of this conference and what it contributes in terms of providing the research that's necessary to drive policy implementation to actually realize the change that the research is pointing towards. So we've got a whole range of different speakers, as we know, and we've also got the fact that this year we've expanded out into live streaming, which again, you know, I suppose if we have any legacy from the COVID is that we've become much more adept at being able to open up the opportunities for sharing our research and learning with a much wider audience than perhaps we would have done before the pandemic. So that's also great. Anyway, I'm not going to hold up proceedings any further, but I want to say a final huge thank you to the presenters, both today and from yesterday, for taking the time out of your usual schedules to get here, to travel, some under one of my colleagues from Brunel who's had to come through Turkey and been delayed, so she's only just arrived today. So a huge effort to actually get here to share her work with you. So thank you very much for coming and for sharing and engaging with everybody here. And I very much look forward to the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mary Richard. And now we will start with the keynote speeches. I would like to invite our first keynote speaker of the day, Professor Dr. Udo Brandl, from CEO and University Management Research and Innovation, IMC University of Applied Sciences, Krems, Austria. The floor is all yours, Professor.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, participants, it's a real pleasure being here with you today. And it's quite a bulky title, I admit, like for a keynote, for the first keynote in the morning. So I will try to sort of like slice it down. And in mathematics, we would call it like a backward induction. So I start from the end. I start with the Citizen Charter as the first step in approaching the topic. But just briefly, because Professor Mansour mentioned something very interesting, like collaboration is the key, and sort of like the presentation today is the output of a collaborative effort. At that time, like so the work on this presentation somehow started, I would say, a year ago or so. At that time, I was still living in Dubai, at that time as the Dean of Dubai Business School at the University of Dubai. And together with colleagues, we were working on something that we thought like could be quite interesting, like in this area of sustainability, in the area of leadership. And Professor Mansour said as well, like governments, the role of governments. So we tried to address a bit like the role of governments in this topic. Just very briefly, I will try to keep this presentation short. Maybe like boring was mentioned a couple of times or so. Like I thought like these were like wonderful presentations so far. So maybe in anticipation of me being boring here, I was told like reduce your presentation to 10 minutes. So maybe 10 minutes of boringness is a bit better than 20 minutes of it. So I will try to stick within the 8 minutes to make something like interesting and hopefully not so boring. Here we go. Turning it on helps. Okay, very briefly and trying to stick to the time limit. I think Citizen Charter might be a term for everyone. I want just to focus on the last 2 points in this. Part of the Citizen Charter is as well like outlining like the government's commitment to providing high quality services in a timely manner, and that's sort of like where our work started. So equal opportunity means as well like accessing information, and governments play an important role in this. Then what I thought as well, like, and usually I would have asked you like pull out your phones, like we do a quick survey. This time I would just say like briefly like raising your hands to a wake up exercise, namely if you think about governments and if you think about the digital advancement of governments in the public sector, if you think about your home country, and I know like in this part of the world like home country and country of residence makes quite a difference. So whatever you feel more interested in, choose your home country, choose your country of residence, and tell me, if you think about your country now, you think your country is a world leader in digital services? Yes, okay, I see quite a few hands up here. You think your country is a fast follower? Bit more? You think your country is more like on the let us see and decide later on what we can do? Less so. waiting. Government and digital doesn't belong together. Okay, so nothing. That's good, because in a way, what we realized as well, our research, and we looked, again, based on the background of this collaborative work, we looked at governments in the UAE, in India, and in Austria. And in the course of our research, we realized that all three countries are most probably a bit up here on the list. Like, so we talk about countries in this regard that are very keen on the digital development and giving people access like to services via the digital. However, we have gone a long way. Like, so, and for those of you from this part of the world, and I think I'm not only talking about the UAE, I think I can extend that to the GCC. It all started like with this idea of like e-government, I would say maybe like 20 something years ago. That took off, went back again, consolidated, the pandemic came. But now we stand at a different level. We stand much higher on that, and now it's more like we've moved from the e-government to more like digital government. We've moved to platforms as well. And now what I briefly want to do, and really just like the next 3-4 minutes, would be talking a bit about the three countries in question, or the three countries like we looked at. Starting with the UAE, apparently something like 20 years ago or so, e-government as a topic popped up in the UAE, and it wouldn't be the UAE and the leaders of the UAE believing in we want to be number one in this. So the country has gone a really long way. This can be seen a bit like on the right hand side here, like the rank. Just look at the ranks of the UAE in this EGDI and E-Part, which is like a bit explained here, so the e-government development index and the e-participation index. So it's not only climbing up the ladders, but it's as well the outlook here, or the trend, I call it, being positive. So it's a continuously upward trend when it comes to the UAE. I take Dubai now as a specific example, and certainly having lived in this city more than a decade, I have seen a bit of this development. I most probably saw more the backhand of all of this, so from the Dubai e-government to what is it called now, the digital Dubai. So the city itself, maybe as a representation of the country, has gone a really long way in that. But don't forget, it all started much earlier. So it was not in 2013 that the leaders in the UAE decided to jump on the e-government train. It all started with the Executive Committee Strategic Management Office, Sheikh Mohammed's office, around the 2000s or so. So the country has gone a long way in that. Digital transformation is important, and again, to be the number one, you should never stop. So it's a continuous process, and a couple of strategies have been launched in this regard. The UAE strategy for government services, that's 2021, for example, in trying to boost the competitiveness in the service sector, rendering government services. Digital transformation is a nice keyword, to quickly jump from the UAE to Europe. Looking at Austria, for example, same story, maybe at the smaller scale. A couple of digitalization funds were opened by the government. Digital governments are becoming more important in Europe as well. Austria, for example, has invested in the last 2 years alone 160 million euros when it comes for the digital transformation in all kinds of areas, so from healthcare to financial services to higher education or education in general, I would say, and certainly the pandemic has played a role in that as well. Talking pandemic and having played a role as well, so this is beautiful Austria, and the yellow parts are kind of like the areas in Austria, and now like I know many of you know Austria, maybe like from holiday or vacation trips. It's apparently a very mountainous area, so bringing the internet, bringing like the digital into every household is a bit of a tough story. It goes easily, like if you look at the right hand side, like Vienna. In Vienna, that might be quite easy, but in some of like the Alps area, it's quite difficult. Having said that, like if you really want equal opportunity, you need to provide access to the ICT all across the country, and so you need to reach the outskirt areas as well. And this is kind of like what the Austrian government has been pushing and investing like billions of euros in investing into like this broadband advancement, especially for the remote areas. And again, the pandemic has shown this part for schools to switch online, and I have seen it in Dubai. In Dubai it was easy, like in the UAE, like broadband internet was available everywhere. In Austria, having talked to family and friends, a little less so. So, and you can tell the difference now at hopefully like the end of COVID, that some schools in Austria really faced a lot of difficulties when it came to providing education remotely. Jumping back or a little south again to India, a little bit of the same story. Digital technologies are becoming more and more important when it comes to government services as well, and certainly like serving a huge country, this can be used as a huge leverage. There are a couple of like visions when it comes to the National E-Governance Plan, as well as the Digital India Plan, both like aiming at the direction of like increasing like the accessibility, especially of remote areas to the digital services. And as well, like a bit similar, and I've just summarized a couple of initiatives in India lately in regards to digitalizing government services. And again, like the approach is like trying like to be as inclusive as possible and trying to cover as many areas as possible. Very, very briefly, the challenges are, and despite talking about three quite different countries, but again, maybe because they're all on the list, the poll that I showed you at the beginning, more at the upper end of like being quite advanced when it comes to digital services, I would still say like the challenges are quite similar across the countries here. Namely, data privacy and protection, and certainly cybersecurity, or the threat of cyber attacks. It's looming all about us. Like, so I just think like in Austria, we as a university are a bit like, we're a smaller university, but we are somehow like a bit scared of like being like the victim of a cyber attack. And we've seen other prominent examples like in Austria as well of research institutions. And there is certainly quite a bit of data lying on our servers that is a bit sensitive, like, and should not get into the hands of the wrong people. So from that end, like that's true for India as much as it is for the UAE. The cultural challenges, the digital skills gaps, and last but not least, and I think this is again true for all countries, but that's something I would not want to forget, especially like looking at the countries such as the UAE, and I think that certainly applies for Bahrain as well, like the societal factors. Like we are talking about countries here, like where the national citizens are only like the minority in the country. So you have this mix of societies which like engage in a very positive way, like, and where you get like the whole spectrum of diversity, but at the same time the participation and inclusion of marginalized groups in social and economic life is certainly a challenge all all across the 3 countries and most probably for other countries as well. Now, last slide, and this is just like the way forward in our own research. We are trying, like, and this is a bit like talk about my own research background, coming like from this corporate governance CSR area. It's about like, so the citizen charter and corporate governance CSR do have like similar elements, and that's something we want to look into a bit closer in the future. And what we would really want to do, and this is now linking the citizen charter, good governance, and ICT, is really about trying like to use like the examples of these 3 countries, and although a bit biased on being on the higher end of the digital integration, on saying like on how can technology, artificial intelligence, for example, help like to provide services to the people like by governments in remote areas, and that's a bit high on our agenda. So coming to the training and knowledge transfer at the end. Thank you very much, Ukraine. And I think 15 boring minutes.
Thank you, Professor Odu. It was very interesting, not boring at all. Next, I would like to invite our second guest speaker for the day, Dr. Ahliauniversitybh, reader in Electrical and Power Systems at University London, to give us her highly beneficial speech on cross-disciplinary research for a sustainable energy future. Dr. Ahliauniversitybh, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Salam alaikum. First of all, I'm going to start with my title, so reader. It sounds very funny. I don't do just reading. But I am very happy to be here today to tell you a little bit about what I have been reading, but also what I've been researching. And my talk is about cross-disciplinary research for a sustainable electrical future. You might have guessed from the title that my specialty is energy engineering and electrical engineering in particular, so I deal with the grids that allow us to be here today and to go on with our daily lives. And just in a nutshell, what we have to do is to make sure that whenever somebody flicks a switch, we have enough power on the grid to support that extra load, so that light or that computer and so on. And it's a very exciting environment for us to be in, especially today, because it's been changing a lot over the years. So, as it has been set up from the beginning, from the opening of today, the quote about knowing the past applies for sustainability in power grids as well. Because initially, our power grids were very linear, very simple. We just had generators, we had very small consumption, and they were very close to each other. So it was very easy to manage them, even though the knowledge was not there yet, because they were developing technologies, even though now they look like antique things. And here in this slide, you can see an iconic landmark in London. It's the Battersea Power Station. The initial power station where you only have 2 chimneys for those that have seen it nowadays. And of course, this transfer of power was happening very easily, as I said, because they were very close to each other. We had windmills from thousands of years ago, but they were used for something else, not for electricity generation. So again, there was a big shift there in the last 20, 30 years. Except for those small loads, like people having light in their houses, we started having factories and motors, so the electricity demand started to change. And then it changed rapidly. We had a boom where we also changed the way we were generating power. So we have wind turbines and solar power and these pesky electric vehicles. And I'm calling them pesky because for us, for power system engineers, it's very, very difficult to manage them for the grid to operate as it is now, which is very reliable. We have done a lot of work in the past to make sure that we have mathematical formulations and algorithms and control algorithms to make sure that this balance between what is switched on in the grid and what generation we have in the grid is being maintained. So for us, electric vehicles represent a new area of research because I have, for example, a postdoc that has been working for 2 years flat, just trying to stochastically model the arrival of electric vehicles at charging stations, because we won't have charging stations everywhere, so it's a whole new world for us to investigate. When it comes to the loads, I mentioned lights, but usually loads used to be very predictable. We had washing machines, we had fridges, we knew exactly how the load curve would look like. So when, during the day, we will have a demand that increased or a demand that decreased, so we knew how to plan our generation accordingly. And we have the morning peak, we have when people wake up and make coffee and breakfast, we have the evening peak when people go home, have dinner and watch TV and so on. We had all that sorted. But then this happened. Yeah, this explosion of new gadgets in the house. So we all have at least one phone, one laptop, one tablet, TVs that are smart and so on. A lot of electric vehicles, and they are coming more and more of this renewable energy, which is great, but it is variable. And you can see here the increase in renewable energy over the years. And last year it was a record year because renewable energy overshot all other types of energy generation. So that was very good. But what happened in this explosion? It happened that the grids that you can see here with those circles, from being linear and nice, became a mess. So managing them became more difficult. Excuse me. Oops. So you remember I was telling you about this demand and generation balancing, and that we had it sorted out. But with these variable sources, where we have wind power when the wind blows, and we have solar power when the sun shines, makes things more complicated for us. So we have these variable sources, and on the other hand, we had this increase in demand because we all have more things to do with electricity in our lives. So we are running very close to the capacity of our networks, because if you try to push too much power on a line, the conductor will melt, and then nothing will be working. So to avoid being all in the dark, we have to come up with new ways of managing our grids in order to achieve a sustainable power grid. And we have here two forces which are pushing the boundaries of power grids even further. So we have, first of all, the low carbon initiatives. So we have directives at European level or at national level. We have the Kyoto Protocol and so on. And we have the demand increase which puts strains on the network because, again, we have to avoid the networks from melting down. And the way to do it was to create an overlay between the power grids and the ICT, and people called it smart grid. It can only be smart if it thinks by itself. So there was a talk earlier about ChatGPT. So we are getting there, but we should apply it not to cheat in exams, but to do positive things. Talking about national policies, in the UK, as a case study, the Committee on Climate Change set a target for the carbon intensity to be 100 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour. And this will happen it has to happen by 2030, so in 7 years' time. However, in 2017, this value was more than 3 times higher. So the targets are very, very strict because of all the challenges with global warming. Here on the left-hand side, you see the national grid view of policies that we can we can channel in order to achieve the net zero desiderate by 2050. And you can see here that if we want a fast pace of decarbonization, we need a high level of change. So the higher level of change we accept, the faster we can decarbonize the system, because if we change our attitudes as consumers, and we know that, you know what, I have to charge my car at night and not now before I go to work, or let's defer washing until later at night in order for the electricity grid to be able to operate properly. So if we include consumers, if we include ourselves in the management of the grid, then it will be easier to decarbonize the system, because we will create what we call flexibility, and you will see that in a minute. However, if we just want to take things gradual, so this steady progression, then we don't need to change our ways of life very much, but we won't achieve the decarbonization targets that we want. And now, quickly, I will go through some challenges and the pathways to address them towards achieving net zero societies, and this can only be done in multidisciplinary approaches. So I will start with flexibility, and this flexibility can take the form of signals for pricing, so for telling people how much electricity will cost in the next half an hour, so they can decide whether to do the washing or not. We can have active power networks, and I'm going to show you what that is, and we can have demand-side response. What we try to achieve with this is flexibility of the grid, for the grid to be a bit more flexible, so that we don't need to put on extra generation, but rather we can just reshuffle our demand to match the current generation capacities. And if we zoom in a bit on the pricing, here on the bottom graph, there is a result from recent research with a PhD student, where we investigated dynamic electricity tariffs and responsive demands, so how the consumers respond to these prices. And we found out that we could save the voltage in our network by just giving them price signals. And you can see the blue line, the original curve, and the red dotted line, the one that we obtained after. And you can see that it is all above this threshold, the pink one, so the voltage remains within acceptable limits. Why is this important? It is important because flexibility of the grid has different values at different times of day. So we have to make sure that we are able to create opportunities for the consumers to help the network. It's a situation like help me, help you. The grid is not anymore just something ubiquitous. It's something that has to be integrated with the consumer. And if we zoom in even more into the active power networks, I highlighted here these circles, so these messy grids that we have now. In active power networks, we allow them, we actually create new paradigm to allow them to reconfigure themselves. So if we have a line that requires a lot of power at one point, we can just switch on another line to work in parallel with that and get that power where it's needed. And especially in the UK case, where most of our generation is in the north and most of our demand is in the south, we have what we call bottlenecks. So we have situations where we cannot get to our customers the power they need because the lines do not allow it. But if we use active networks, so the networks reconfigure themselves and they get this energy from other sources located closer in the south, then we are able to maintain the security of supply in our grids. I said that it has to be a multidisciplinary approach. And here on this slide, you can see how multidisciplinary it is. So the three areas that I spoke about, the demand response and consumer participation, the active networks and the pricing signal, they are all intertwined, and they rely on different disciplines. I'm going to start with electrical engineering, obviously, because it's my favorite subject, but we also have social sciences, we have artificial intelligence, economics, we have cybersecurity, which is something that was again mentioned earlier. We have control, telecommunications, and of course, energy. So all of these disciplines have to come together in order for us to be able to create new ways of doing things for the benefit of our societies, to create a more sustainable energy future. So what can we do with the flexibility? Well, we can defer investment in the network. Instead of just putting in more lines and more transformers and more generation, we can just say, okay, stop. That has a carbon cost. So let's make a step back and use flexibility to cover our needs. And of course, we can avoid stopping wind turbines from generating when the wind is high, but we don't have demand, because we can find other ways of using that electricity which otherwise wouldn't have a purpose. And back to the UK case study, the system flexibility solutions for meeting those targets that I mentioned earlier of 100 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour would save up to 4.7 billion pounds per year our grids. And if we go even further and lower that to 50 grams, which is, I grant you, it's a very strict target, we could save 7.8 billions per year. So we really need to decarbonize our energy, and the way to do it is through flexibility services. To go back to our cube, another area where we have to be careful with is the social acceptance. So as I said, in order to decarbonize the system, we have to make sure that we accept in a society that we have to do things differently. And here, this social acceptance can take different facets, let's say. We have the visual pollution, and in the previous slides you saw this very classic electricity pylon, but people are trying to find out new ways of doing it so that they are not bothered by the pylons in the landscape. Sound pollution, even wind turbines flutter when they spin, so we have to have some acceptance for that. The perceived impacts on communities and the local areas, many times we are reluctant to accept change, so this is something that we have to deal with in the future. And another big thing is the big brother feeling for smart metering. So in the UK, we have a large proportion of the population not wanting smart meters in their homes, while the smart meters will enable flexibility because they feel that they would be monitored by them, so we have to increase the social acceptance for that. For social acceptance, you see here a plethora again of disciplines that we have to take into account. So social sciences, obviously, civil engineering, structural engineering, energy, but even cybersecurity, because going back to the big brother of smart meters, we need cybersecurity in order to give people the trust in the system. When we talk about social justice, what we talk about is a framework that includes the consumer or the user in the decision-making process. So we start with including the people in the design and implementation of the process, and then we look at how different minorities or different classes of consumers are affected by that process. So in our case, for example, for the electricity, if we say that it's a government policy to switch to e-transportation, so electric vehicles and so on, how are the people affected by it? How affordable is switching to electric vehicles to people in the community? Or if dynamic tariffs are to be implemented, which require some sort of gadgets to work, are we disadvantaging older people because they don't have the tech skills of the youngsters? So all these things have to be accounted for in order for the social justice to take place and to be achieved. So we have to also incentivize our end users to install rooftop PV panels, for example, and we cannot do that just by telling them, okay, it's for the good of the planet. We have to make sure that they also get some benefits out of it, because otherwise they would just be out of pocket, and they need to get some benefit from that. Here, the discipline mix looks something like this. So we have social sciences, again, obviously, but we also have policy, we have economics, and we have statistics. We have to know how many people are benefiting from a measure that we take through our policy, or how many people are disadvantaged, and to make decisions based on that as well. And finally, the environmental conservation. Here we have to take into account the biodiversity and how we can maintain it while we decarbonize our energy system, meaning we install new wind turbines, and you can see there a flock of birds affected by it. But it's not only the collisions that we have to take into account, but also the habitats of those birds. But also we have to go back all the way to where we mine and how we mine the materials that we use to construct the renewable energy generators. So you can see that it's a very intricate thought process. I'm finishing in 1 minute. One thing to remember here is that if we want to use only renewable energy, but to maintain our energy consumption and to increase it, that will mean that we will have to use 3 times the surface that we use now from the planet. So we will affect definitely habitats. And here is a map that shows the purple areas are the areas with the biodiversity that is endangered, because that's where the potential of renewable energy is also higher. So that's where we will seek to install renewable energy, but where biodiversity will be affected. And here we have a discipline mixed with environmental sciences, ICT, policy, biology, zoology, and energy, and everything in between. So to go now fastly to just the conclusions, in order to achieve sustainable energy futures, we have to make sure that we take into account the consumer, and that we empower them with the knowledge and the flexibility to help the grid help them. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Iyana Picasa, for your speech. Your ideas and practices would truly be beneficial to everyone. And now we will start with the sessions and presentations. Dear attendees and guests, kindly note that you have an option to choose which sessions to attend. We have a session in this room, another session in the Fairuz room upstairs, and multiple sessions online. The links of the online sessions are available on the agenda, and you can choose whichever session you would like to attend. We will now start with session 1 on environmental sustainability in this room. The session will be chaired by Dr. Maria Sabri from Ahliauniversitybh, Bahrain. Before the session starts, I would like to call the session chair and the following presenters to join us on the stage. Dr. Khalid Ali Shuhaib, Marwa Abu Hassan, Muhammad Al Taroush, Noura Bella, Musa Admu, Constantine, and Sarah Hassan Ibrahim. Please, presenters, you can join us now on the stage. Thank you.
session.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our first session for today. I would like to welcome our speakers to the session. What I'll be doing, I'll be calling each presenter and the title of their presentation to the podium, and we'll take it until the end, and we will have a question and answer session at the end of the session. So if you have any questions, please hold on to them until the end of the 6 presentations, where we will allow enough time, hopefully, for your questions. Now? There's supposed to be 6. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Good. Our first presenter is Khalid Ali Al-Shuhaib, the title of Color, Hue, Saturation and Value in Web Banners, Advertising, a Systematic Review and Future Directions Approach. Dr. Khalid, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ya hello, marhaba. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. Would like, if you allow me, to start by thanking yet again Prof. Abdullah, Prof. Mansour, Ahliya University, all the people in Bahrain for their generous hospitality and welcomeness, and also for this very beautiful and inshallah very fruitful conference. So the conference is about equal opportunity, and as you heard yesterday from Dr. Haneen about the equal opportunity that's happening in Saudi Arabia, well, you saw what's happening. Say that Dr. Haneen was my boss, and now she is also still, but a dean of a different college, but she is also my wife. So although she's my wife, but yeah, so Dr. Haneen, my wife, she presented yesterday, and I'm presenting the second day, and she's a note speaker, so that's also part of the stage. But Prof. Abdullah also mentioned a couple of things. I just want to touch on that, if you allow me, real quick, because it's very important. Equal opportunity, but not equal outcome. So the equal outcome depends on the person, him or herself. So we give them equal opportunities. If they prove themselves, then they can be deans. And we have another example of Dr. Ra'a, Dean of research and scientific research. So thank you very much. All right, so my name, Dr. Khalid Al-Shuhaib, Jeddah College of Advertising. I want to stress advertising because that's what my paper is all about today. I'm part of the University of Business and Technology, UBT, sister University of Ahliya. And usually in research, we do 2 things, either problem solving or problem identification. In this paper, we're going to do both. We're going to identify the problem, and we're going to give recommendations on how to solve it. So the role of colors on web banner. Briefly, as you saw, in COVID-19 changed everything in life, basically in shopping. So generally, yesterday I was in Ahliya Mall, and malls right now are not very crowded as they used to. People have moved to online shopping. So in online shopping, in physical malls, when you go there, people take care of decorations, colors, space, all that stuff. Well, now more and more people are going to online shopping. So we should also put in mind the color and decoration of the online, basically, and specifically on the web banners, because as we see, we will see today, inshallah, in this paper, when we discuss how effective and how important this is going to be on shoppings and on shoppers. So we'll start with the introduction, the methodology, discussion. So this is the introduction. So colors are so many of them, but some studies mainly focused on different colors. We will see them in a little bit, but I want to, because of time, I want to focus on one thing, which is the effect of these colors on consumers' emotional state of mind, which is their decision making, and how important that is. And does it play an important role on changing consumers' intentions to buy? Well, when we say change their intentions to buy, doesn't mean we make them buy. Sometimes actually keep them from buying. You have a potential customer, and because of the color, they will just say, nah. Unintentionally, just psychologically, they will say, oh, I don't like it. And just basically because of the color or the decoration. So as we know that warm colors affect perception, cool colors positively attract consumers' intention. I just want to give you an example. Some of you guys maybe noticed, I'm sure all of you here know that in fast food chain restaurants like McDonald's, Burger King, and all that stuff, the seating color are red and blue. Why? Because that will help them to move quickly. On the other hand, other places like cafes, like Starbucks and other branches, they have cool colors to make you relax and sit there and spend more time. Generally, people do not think about that, but actually, whether we think about it or not, it actually affects us. So that's what we're going to be covering in here. The problem of, as we said, it's a problem identification and problem solving also at the same time. So problem identification is that there's very limited studies in general that cover the effect of color on web banners in general, even in the natural world. And I've taken into consideration in this paper, I read so many papers, but I only used 5 as examples. You will see it in the next few slides. I'm going to go a little bit faster, the methodology, to check the link between the color, the hue, saturation, and value, and then the perception and the emotional state of mind of the consumer. I know this is a loaded slide, but I want you to focus on a few things. For example, we'll go a little bit in detail, but for example, different studies, different researchers from different countries, different continents. That's what I'm trying to pinpoint, which is all in the first row in here. From Germany, China, Canada, and the US to Portugal. So covered almost 3-4 continents. These are the colors studied, findings, and the future directions or the future recommendations. Summary of this table, and here is that the first researchers, this suggested that different colors, hue, saturation, actually positively impact on people's emotional state. They studied 27 colors, different colors, with 3 brightness levels. This is a huge study, large number of colors. There are some other studies which is studied less limited number, but still the effect is almost similar in all of them. It says that also for Kim, bright mute color talked about the effect of the color, whether it's light, and gives also affect the emotional state and perception. And then the one in China studied only red and blue. That's what we just mentioned on fast food restaurants, and also the Countryman and Jang. They said that scholars are suggested to use different colors combination, meaning red and blue, or is it red and white, or yellow with beige. So not only colors in general, but also try to do different combinations, see the effect of them. So I'm going to go a little bit faster. So the discussion says that the researchers in general, all of them, they emphasize that this area of combination is still young, meaning lots of studies needed. And I know that all of you here are researchers, and sometimes as researchers we struggle to find the right topic. Well, if you are into this kind of field, this is a very good opportunity because it's right there and it is young, and anything you do is going to add to the literature in general. Also, they say that there is a strong link between observed consumers and the products and the service. Color will always affect that. And there's also several studies investigated and claimed different impact of color saturation and value on the consumer's emotional state of mind. As I say, every time I'm gonna repeat that because it's strong effect. The idea is that for people generally they place a huge amount of money, effort on the product itself, which is good. But how to sell it, how to produce it, how to present it, that's the main important thing. Because sometimes, last night, as I told you again, I was in Ahlia, the presentation, the color actually affects. So you're not really buying the product itself, but you're buying the whole experience. So now we're talking about the actual malls. How about online? So online, we need to focus on web banners, and we need to go more because there's very really less and less studies on web banners. All right. Number 2, it says need to narrow small size with little diversity. There's another interesting thing. They found that different colors means different things in different societies and cultures. So maybe some colors are in Asia, gives them a certain intuitions. The same colors will mean something different, for example, in Africa or South America. And finally, we'll go to that researchers encourage to investigate and conclude with the dominance of emotional state of mind. Also, more importantly, researchers suggest also that the color blindness, because that's also considered. Yes, the amount of people with color blindness is limited, but they are also very important customers in general. And that's it. Thank you very much and appreciate your listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khaled. Very interesting field. And our next presenter is Dr. Marwa Abu Hassan. Title of her presentation is Sustainable Urban Street Design in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Marwa?
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Marwa Abu Hassan, Associate Professor, Architecture Department from UPT University. The topic of my paper for today is Sustainable Urban Street Design in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Really, all of our streets need to be changed. Why we need to change the design of our street to increase the quality of the streets? All the people need streets not only for walking, but they need the streets for making the activities, practicing, and going for all the activities they need. The idea to accommodate all the users, as you can see here in this photo, accommodate the walking, accommodate the traffic, the cars, the public transport and private transport is the main issue to provide a sustainable street. The plan also, the plan of the neighborhood, not only the street itself, affected with the design of the street, affected the traffic congestion, crashes, and the pollution of the air. How we could insert the sustainability inside our streets, this is the main issue. And we need to understand what the meaning of sustainability when we need to add it in our street. Sustainability means that we need to meet our and meet our needs without compromising other activities and needs for our other generation. Sustainability is the value shared by many aspects, how we could connect the environmental, the social, and the economical aspect together. Sorry? Sorry. Yeah, going fast. Yes, here. How we could link the environmental aspect and the social and the economical aspect together to provide a sustainable street. Also, we can find the meaning of sustainability appeared in the Sustainable Development Goals, especially in Goal number 11, to provide access, safe, affordable, accessible, sustainable transport system for all the users. When we design the sustainable street, there is several goals, not only for walking or traffic, but also to use less energy, to use less material resources, and how we could less affect the environment with bad issues. We can find many problems in our urban street, not only the traffic problem, but we found many other different problems like sewage and rainwater drainage problems, air pollution coming from the industrial and coming from the cars, also noise pollution coming from the cars and the traffic, and also we can find lack of greenery. How we could solve all of these problems together, we need to think and set some objectives. These objectives need and try to increase the quality of our life and the public health and the environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social equity. How we could add all of these activities and objectives together, we need to think more how we could design the street for our people, how the people move and how they can see and how they can feel the different environment that they are found in, how we can design the streets for safety for all the people and especially for the disabled people, how we could design the street for the context, not only the street for the street itself. This street is connected to other street and connected to other neighborhood and district, how we could connect all of this together to provide a sustainable, not only street, but sustainable context. Streets also provide for the public, provide for all the activities for the public, not only activities for commercial. They are found many other activities need to concern about it. Also, we need to think about the street as an ecosystem, increasing how we could increase the environmental aspect in our street, how we could make our street is better for all the business, not only for the commercial or residential aspect, but increasing the investment in our street. Street impact, of course, our quality of life. If we are founding and designing a good sustainable street, this will increase our quality of life. Streets are multimodal. Multimodal meaning there is a walking, there is a public transportation, there is a private transportation, and how we could link all of these together. Of course, beside all of these activities, we need to provide the spaces, and the open spaces provide all of these different aspects that is caring about increasing the sustainable design. For example, we need to increase the greenery, increase and provide safe walkability, design a good open spaces, and provide interactive activities between the people, and good design for the linking of our open spaces with the residential. If we are concerning not only the activities beside the street, but of course the street itself, how we could add the public transportation with the pedestrian, we can add a diagrammatic section for this design by providing a safe, active sidewalk, as you can see here, and how the people take the public transportation, provide a transit area for staying and sitting until they take the public transportation. Of course, also we can add a bike lane for the people to increase the sustainability and minimize the public and minimize the private transportation. As we can start adding all of these activities in my case study, I divided my analysis and my methodology in my case study into 3 stages. Planning study the case study, the examples in Saudi Arabia especially, and collect all the information regarding the street, adding some analysis for these data, and putting some development stages. I took in the paper 2 different examples and 2 different case studies. The first one is Ibrahim Abdullah Masoud in Salama district. This is the location. Here, as you can see here, this is, I took this part of the street to start making a detailed study on this part, because this part, I especially took this part, because this part, especially this part of the street, because it's including a walkway also. So this street, not a commercial street only or just a walking area, but it's merged between how we could provide a safe walking area beside the other activities. After collecting all the information and all the land uses and activities in this area, I found a big problems in this part. The people couldn't go to the walk area with a safe transportation. There is a big problem with the visually aspect to feel the beautiful of this part of the street. Also, there is a bad design for the open spaces. There is a missing activities in this area. They provide only the walking area without any services to conserve and to attract people to come and walk in this part. So I tried to solve these problems by these development ideas, by adding shaded element, increasing the greenery, and provide a safe crosswalking, as you can see here, to let the people go to the walking area. And these are some ideas to solve these problems. As you can see here, this is the safe crossing area. The people can go now to the walking part, increasing the greenery to provide a shading and let people walk for a long time. As you can see the other photo, I provide a sitting area, lighting element, and selecting a good material for the landscape to attract the people and to provide more activities in the case study. Here are some other options: designing the greenery, designing the sitting area to have a break while walking, and to provide a bike lane. The second case study, it's Abdel Maqsood Khoja Street in Hay Rawda district. Here, I took this part of this street. This is another example, because this is not for walking area, but it's a lot of activities, commercial, residentials, cafe and entertainment, many activities in this street, but all of these activities is interlocking together and provide many problems. As you can see here, this is the part of my case study. And there are many problems, some of them like this: lack of pedestrian walkway, no services for different transportation, the intersection, it's not safe for people, narrow sidewalks, and random parking area need more greenery. So many problems affect this street. As you can see here, it's not attracting the people to come and make any activities in this area. So I started to think about solutions for this street and adding more development, increasing the pathway to increase the walkability, creating comfortable environment, increasing the sitting area, increasing the greenery, design more thinking about the bus stop to increase the public transportation, provide a suitable area for the parking, and provide a bike lane. And this is some ideas for the designing the street. As you can see here by the coloring, this is pedestrian sidewalks, and an island at the middle of the street provide the bike lanes and some few walking area, and the bus stop. And this is some images also to increase the sustainability in the street, parallel parking, cycling lane, pedestrian crossing, and provide increasing the greenery and the sitting area to have a break, especially in the cafe area. This is also another ideas to increase the public transportation, more greenery, and inshallah we hope to reach all of these. We took also not only the pedestrian and the walking, the open spaces that is found in this part. I started to design, add more activities also matching with the sustainable design. And thank you for these ideas, and set at the end of the paper some recommendations regarding the sidewalks to have good materials. This is what I said in the two examples: the accessibility, increasing the accessibility and the walkway, thinking about the furniture of the street, the bus shelter, and the bicycle security activities. All of these recommendations regarding designing good lighting and planting to increase the sustainability in the street. I tried to summarize my paper for not taking a long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marwa. Very interesting. Perhaps your research can benefit all of the GCC countries and not only Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much. Our next presentation is done by multiple researchers. That is Mohammed El-Troush, Noura Bala, and Musa Adamo. The title is Prefabricated Plastic Pavements for High Traffic and Extreme Weather Conditions. Dr. Mohammed, please go ahead.
Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Azat. I'm Assistant Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Prince Sultan University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. I'm also the Secretary of the American Society of Civil Engineers, representing the Saudi section. My pleasure to be with you today. I will present some kind of eco-friendly solution for the pavement. I can share the same concern with Dr. Marwa and for the energy topic. I hope I can provide some kind of solution today. We are presenting something called prefabricated plastic pavement for hard traffic and extreme weather condition. For sure, with the rapid climate change, we are experiencing nowadays many unusual events witnessed in different countries. Flood in Germany during the summer, flood in Jeddah and Mecca recently in the last 2 months, many unusual events. With that in mind, for the global change, the average land and ocean surface temperature has recorded 1.16 Celsius higher compared to the average record among the whole 20th century. With that in mind, the current conventional asphalt we are utilizing in our infrastructure is by default it's sensitive temperature material. So with the temperature increase, we found that asphalt could lose up to 92% of its structural capacity. Even by cooling in Europe, for example, asphalt switched to solid fragile material, which is brittle failure easily. For sure, you experience one of those cracks in everywhere in the roadway while driving, walking, everything. Let me explain. One of the main reasons for this is the temperature change, either by heating or by cooling. Okay, on the other hand, also asphalt has a significant contribution to the climate change. It induced up to 300% of CO2 emission upon heating, regardless the CO2 emission induced during the production itself. To summarize this problem, asphalt significantly contribute to climate change, and the result will be global warming, which is increase the temperature, which is will fail the asphalt structurally. So it's a vice versa relationship. With that in mind, what we need eco-friendly solution for this problem, for future and sustainable smart cities. The solution we will presenting today is a plastic prefabricated pavement. I will show after a while how it could mitigate the climate change. It has a low cost and time. It's very easy in maintenance and compatible with 3D printer. And it's use 100% of recyclable material. In addition, it contributes to waste management problem, which is a second layer of the complication we have. The last and main issue for this system is the high drainage ability. As all of us may know, rainwater is one of the main water resources here in Gulf area mainly. So the plastic waste, around 300 million tons produce of plastic waste worldwide annually. And for sure, even in Gulf area, we have sharing the same problem. A lot of plastic waste without any direction recycling way. So we try to use this problem as an opportunity. The system, as you can see here in this video, it's a hollow, lightweight plastic structure, mainly made of virgin plastic or recycled plastic. It can be both. It has a very lightweight. It can be movable very fastly and just placed above the subgrade soil without any base layer or so. Currently, the world's first plastic road construction worldwide was in Netherlands. It was constructed in 2018. But up till now, the research in this direction is still in the early stage. It's still very limited to sidewalks and cyclic lanes. So without rail application with the heavy loaded roadway, normal roadway. So the current available section are CCL 100 and 200 and 300. The three are the same, consist of plastic material, but with different feature. The most interesting one is the last one, 300. It could integrate smart sensor to detect the traffic data, collect the rainwater and information, and also give some information about the maintenance time and need. The construction of this system is very easy. As I mentioned, it's very light, just placed on site, and it has a unique joint to be interlocking tightly with each other. The research gap now is how to extend this section not to be limited to cyclic lane and sidewalks, and to be extended to be a main roadway, main system for the roadway instead of asphalt. We examined in our research 6 plastic materials that could be recycled from different applications of demolition and construction waste, and also different plastic industries. The main issue we consider here in selecting those materials is the melting point to sustain under the extreme weather condition. For sure, mainly for the Gulf area, we have high temperature everywhere. So the melting point of this system was one of the considerable issues we consider in this study. In addition, this is one of the significant contribution of this system, which is water storage capacity. As all of us may know, the main reason of floods is the low drainage or permeability of the conventional asphalt. Asphalt is very poor in drainage the water. So this system has a unique properties that allow it to not only absorb the rainwater very quickly, but also to store it, and it could be integrated and connected with the sewage system, which is save a lot of rainwater. To get more deeply, we investigated 10 case study constructed worldwide in different countries to examine the efficiency of such system. As you may see here in this summarized table, the 10 cases used different models. As you can see, it also can cover different variety of dimension and geometry. The most interesting one is case number 3, if you may have a look. Only 1 meter long of this system was able to store 91,000 liter water with only 100 meter length, which is showing a good efficiency in water storage. Okay, to summarize at the end, what is a lesson learned from those case study, or we can call it conclusions. It's a very efficient system for cyclic lane and sidewalk. Up till now, it is not efficient with the roadway due to the heavy load. We are working in a research project in Prince Sultan University to extend it to be a main roadway system. Secondly, it has a very good ability to store water, and it could be integrated with the sensor to monitor the traffic and give data about the rainwater and the time of maintenance. One more point here, inspired from the energy presentation, the system could be integrating with the solar system, solar cell. Looking to the land use problem, I will give some percentage that may be interesting for you. Looking to United States, for example, 94% of the urban covered by pavement. If we invest this covered area to be a source of energy, it will be a very good contribution in this direction. And for sure, we are happy to participate if you have the interest. Thank you so much. You can scan this if you would like to reach me, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad. Very interesting. Hope your research can contribute to saving the environment. And
Excuse me, Dr. Maria, Professor, I would like to invite Professor Makhtar, Professor Mansour to the stage.
Apologies for interrupting your program. So give me just 1 minute. I'm here to welcome to this conference a special person from the UN, United Nations, Josephine Moss, who is the regional director of UN Women in, I think, the Middle East, but apparently the protocol of the UN tells them when to speak and where to speak. So I just came here to welcome you and thank you. And I want to say that really the UN office in Bahrain have been very helpful, and they are helping us with the MUN for the universities of Bahrain. And your presence here is really an honor for us, and it gives an extra push for our conference, which is now gone international. Thank you and welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you, Professor Mansour. And welcome to the conference. Our next speaker is Dr. Konstantin with the topic of technology, integration, and digital transformation in the post-COVID hybrid education.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can see the screen. I've been working in the UAE for 14 years now. I'm an associate professor of education at Abu Dhabi University. And the reason for this paper, the main concern was the end of the pandemic and how the institutions in the UAE were going to cope with the post-pandemic period. So I put together some information on how they can use this information to apply digital integration in the courses and to succeed in what they want as we call digital transformation. So some of the things to consider when you're talking about digital transformation or digital integration, if you like, in education, is that the role of the educator has changed. Okay, some people still insist that the traditional role of the teacher, but there's significant changes, and most of them are related to technology. So the paper is also dealing with some types of technology integration, how you can use them to have successful seamless integration of technology, and frameworks of technology integration I will discuss very briefly. So the role of the educator. There is this organization in, I think it's in the US, the International Society for Technology and Education. So they've been around for many years now. So what they've done is they have released some standards for educators, standards for students, and standards for leaders, educational leaders as well, which I'm going to go through quickly in this presentation. They have more, like for teaching assistants. Also, they have a certification that people can take to certify the knowledge of technology. What these standards give us is an idea of what kind of characteristics the modern educator or the modern student, if not say modern, the contemporary student or the contemporary educator and leaders should have, especially when dealing with technology. So these are the standards for the educator. So an educator today is expected to be a learner, to learn as well, okay? So what they have gained from their degree is not enough anymore. They have to professionally develop themselves all the time. They need to be leaders. They need to show, to take any opportunity they find to show leadership, leading their colleagues, their institution, and so on. They need to be involved in digital citizenship, so they need to have a presence in the digital world. Collaborators, either with their colleagues or with their students or with other institutions. They have to be designers and designers of learning. This means, especially authentic activities, authentic learning. They have to be facilitators of knowledge. So it's not about being the teacher-centered anymore. The teacher is the center of the class, but they have to facilitate learning, teaching the students how to learn things, which is more important. And finally, they have to be analysts. Now, with all this data that they get in their job, they can analyze them to design better learning conditions for their students. When it comes to the leaders, equally, they have to be advocates of equity and citizenship, that is digital citizenship. I could be going on to explain more, but I know I only have 10 minutes. So, empowering leaders, okay, of other people who they're leading. Systems designer, so they have to have an idea on how all the systems work in their institution, the institution they lead. Visionary planners, and also connected learners. They have to also improve their learning to be following the developments, whatever is happening. This generation who are now in schools, they are Generation Z, born 2000 onwards, 1995 onwards. You have also the little brothers and sisters. This is Generation Alpha. They're very different, and their relationship to technology is very different. So most of the times, educators, teachers at schools, or even at universities if you like, they forget this. So they give them traditional linear tasks, something they find boring. So these kids, an educator should study and should understand how these generations think, what they find engaging and interesting, and this is how the learning experience should be designed in schools. So you'll find out, for example, that they're more social than you think, okay? Although they're involved in digital technologies and spending time online, but this does not mean that they're not social. It's just a different kind of socialization they're following. They're multitaskers, okay? They like and they can do many things at the same time. They can have 5 screens in front of them and do things on the 5 screens at the same time. Entrepreneurs, 1 out of 2 are educated. The philanthropists, they're interested in global issues like the environment and other issues. Digital natives, interactive, tech-savvy, less focused, and cautious about many things online. So when it comes to the standards for them, they have to be empowered learners. They have to be digital citizens just like their teachers. So think about in a moment, you have all those standards, all these standards for students, and how can you have teachers to create students like this if they themselves are not involved and they have those standards that are prescribed for them from IST, for example. So knowledge constructors, they can construct knowledge for themselves, not just find it ready. Innovative designers, creativity, problem solving, creative communicator, computational thinker, and global collaborators with other students and other institutions. In the UAE, schools do not really have a lot of collaboration with schools outside the UAE, but I remember in Europe, this is very common, or in the US and other countries. Now, when it comes to types of technology integration, one thing we should mention about it is that technology integration has to be seamless. When I talk to my students who are teachers, I teach postgraduate diploma and master in educational leadership. And I said to them, you have to be perfect. They say, why we have to be perfect? What else do you want to be? It doesn't take too much to be perfect. Just follow some simple rules and some simple guidelines. So when it comes to technology, it has to be kind of flawless when you integrate it and you offer it to your students. Okay, it doesn't take too much. You're aware of this, face-to-face, blended, hybrid, online. When it comes to methodologies to teach, one of them would be appropriate, would be the blended learning. So you have a mix of face-to-face, synchronous, asynchronous learning. Is that for me? From experience, I taught such class and I still teach. As a matter of fact, for Abu Dhabi University, our postgraduate courses in education are all online, so still teaching from home. Okay, we'll go to university too. So they have to be, the first class will have to be face-to-face, then you should have some kind of differentiation in the assessments that you give them. You have synchronous contacted classes, and then you have differentiation between content delivery discussion, and there should be a limited class size. Sometimes I have classes where up to 70 students. The logistics are good for the university because it saves money from having 3 different campuses, 3 teachers, and so on. But okay, they split them when they're 70 students to 35, but still a lot, especially when the postgraduate students. There are various models of blended learning. I'm not going to go through them. So these are characteristics of project-based learning that you can, I analyzed this and describe them in the paper. This is a model of project-based learning where you have the aim in the middle, and around you have how you go about it. You have to have a careful design and planning, aligned to the standards. You have to build the culture, both with the leaders, the teachers, and the students to embrace this kind of teaching. Manage activities, scaffold student learning, assess student learning, engage coach, and it goes around. And if you like, this can be broken down into the features on the left and some activities on the right. Gamification is something else that you can have in the classroom. There's a model, that is showing some of the important features of gamification and how you can, the students can benefit from this, analytical thinking, logical reasoning, and so on. And you can have different types of dynamics, like the different types of games you can create in the classroom. On the top, competition, collaboration, and on the left side are the different features that you incorporate in the game that you give to your students. There is this model that shows how you can take something and make it a game in the classroom. It's not about the 5-10 minutes at the end where the teachers, they give some kind of a game for the students to do the formative assessment. It's about gamifying the whole experience in the classroom, if you can. Okay, so you have to understand the audience, define the learning objectives, and so on. How am I doing? No, almost done. Okay. Another way to integrate technology is use virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality. If I was going to write this paper was written some time ago, not more than a year ago. But of course, you know the developments with the discussions about the metaverse and the discussions about artificial intelligence, the ChatGPT. They're probably going to rewrite all this again. Okay, but at the moment, the experience in the schools is at this level. So this is why I didn't really deal too much with the newest developments. Maybe in the next conference I will. Actually, I'm doing research on that right now. Hello? So other ways, it's okay. Other ways to integrate technology would be using mobile phones. Only thing problem in the UE, I don't know here, is that students are not allowed to have mobile phones in the classroom. Handheld devices, interactive whiteboard surfaces, social media, careful consideration how to use, coded curation, student-created media, and so on. And there's some frameworks that you can use to help you integrate technology. There's no really a theory of digital learning, like one theory that you can take and apply, but they're just different models that can be used for different purposes. So these two, the first one is the rat model. Doesn't have to do anything with rats, but it's just the initial replacement, amplification, and transformation. So technology can bring this into the classroom, so this model describes how. This is more interesting, it's the pick rat. On the left side, you have the student relationship to technology, which is passive, interactive, or creative. And on the bottom, you have the teacher's use or engagement with technology. Okay, so it can be replacement, amplification, or transformation. So what you try to do is you try to succeed to get to the top right combination, which is creativity and transformation of the learning experience. This is the same model. The same lines with the pick rat and rat. And this one here is something that can give you an idea. I use this for some research of the skills of the teachers, for example. So every teacher is supposed to have content knowledge, supposed to have they're supposed to have pedagogical knowledge, and they're supposed to have technology. So some teachers can be good enough to have pedagogy and content. Some others are good in having technology and pedagogy, and some others, they know the content, they know technology. The ideal would be somewhere in the middle, where you have all these three together, and there's an equal balance. I'm finishing. Okay, this is team. It's another model. On the left side, you have different types of learning. On top, you have the level of teaching in the classroom. And there's another one here that this is a dynamic model, can change. It's based on the motivation theories, and it's based on Bloom's taxonomy. So it tries to align certain apps with how to succeed its level of Bloom's taxonomy and so on. I just want to mention this, that there's a difference between the emergency online teaching or remote teaching that happened during COVID and planning e-learning properly. Okay, planning an e-learning program takes years. So you need to consider the infrastructure, you need to update the infrastructure, you need to educate and train the people, you need to create the resources, and it's nothing like, because some institutions now, they think, okay, we did what we did in, during the pandemic, and instead of progressing forward, they're thinking now, how can we go back to the normal, they call normal again. What is that normal? Anyway, I mean, we're supposed to progress. I don't know here, but in Bahrain or Saudi Arabia, but in the UE, we're supposed to have embraced technologies in the beginning of 2000, when I moved there 2000. Yeah, 2000. So, 2009, sorry. So supposed to go forward, not backwards, and this was the opportunity. Okay, so this is my details, and this is, you can scan that, give you, my details where to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Constantin. Your topic is actually very close to my heart. We have Generation Z right now in the universities and looking forward to Generation Alpha. Very interesting. Inshallah. أخاف يطيحون من قدامنا. Oh, okay. MashaAllah, we have a young speaker, so she is quite balanced. Dr. Sarah. Dr. Sarah's topic is, inshallah, future doctor. Okay. The impact of presenteeism on employee productivity, a gender perspective. Go ahead.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Siadi. I am a master's student at the University College of Bahrain, and today inshallah I will be presenting a small part of my graduation project, starting with a humble opinion of mine. Actually, I believe that globally, success is a main objective of each single country, businessman and businesswoman. And success will not be achieved without the most important assets around in the world, actually, which is human. And a human will not lead us to success if they are suffering from something called presenteeism. What's the meaning of presenteeism? Actually, presenteeism means whenever the employee attending the workplace physically, but mentally they are absent. So I believe each one of us here suffered from presenteeism once upon a time. And inshallah, I will talk about it in details right now in a gender perspective. Here we have some of the previous literatures, which is Rainbow and Stages in 2017, Ferreira and her colleagues in 2015, as well as Carol and Brower in 2014. All of them, they defined presenteeism like going to work physically, but mentally they are absent. And why did I choose this topic actually? Because during my journey searching for an interesting topic, actually I did not find such topic and study here in Bahrain. There were just very slight part was implemented by the Ministry of Health, and I said why we don't apply this in the real life, because I want something to be reflected in the real life and give us the maximum benefit of it. Why presenteeism? Because presenteeism, it has an indirect cost. An indirect cost, it's difficult to measure. While absenteeism, what is absenteeism? Absenteeism, which is physically they are absent from work, so I believe the employer, they know the exact cost of that absenteeism. While presenteeism actually it has indirect cost. Thank you. While presenteeism, it has indirect cost, so it will affect the productivity. As we said, without productivity, we cannot reach anywhere. The second purpose of choosing this topic is it has an impact on productivity more than absenteeism, as we said. Plus, there is no significant or there is no enough instrument to measure that presenteeism. And the aim of it is to identify the relationship between the presenteeism and the employee productivity, as well as to understand which factors that causes presenteeism, as well as how to contribute to further understanding and for future studies as well. Here, there is a study. This is the latest study where been done through the economic burden of Bahrain in 2019. We can see here presenteeism has the higher percentage, more than the health expenditure, the cost of it, more than absenteeism, and more as the deaths as well. And here we can see a comparison between presenteeism and the diabetes, cancer, respiratory diseases, and we can see the cost of a presenteeism is almost $1,470,000 million dinars, actually. And during the journey of the research, I collected the data from two data collection, which is primary data and secondary data. Primary data were collected from the electronic questionnaire, and the secondary data were collected from the previous studies. Here, I was a bit shocked because usually females having, mashallah, the majority of participating, while here, males, I'm not being racist, here, males, they had the majority, which is 52% of the respondents, and actually I chose the sample size and I applied this questionnaire on banking sector in Bahrain. For all the employees, Bahrainis and non-Bahrainis, whoever is working in the banking sector. And the 48% were females. Aronson and his colleagues in 2000, he mentioned that females are suffering from presenteeism more than males. While here, I have some factors can prove the opposite.
Yes, good. Yeah. Maybe now something will be done.
And here, we can see the variation table. We can see the mean of male and female. Actually, these are the factors being chosen in my study, which is workaholics people. And there is two types of workaholism, which is working excessively and working compulsively. Here, men, they were suffering from workaholism and working excessively, which is 3.67 more than females. While females, they are suffering from working compulsively more than men. Okay, and we can see here, males are suffering from presenteeism more than females, with a and it is significant at 0.16. We can see depression. Guess what? Depression. Who's suffering from depression? Male or females?
Everybody today.
Females. And we can prove it here. Depression. Females are suffering from depression more than males, with and it is significant actually, as it is 0.005. What about the job satisfaction? What about the job satisfaction? We can see males are suffering and they are not satisfied mostly with their job, with a 3.5 mean more than the females. And it is also significant. As we can see, males are suffering from physical well-being more than females, but it wasn't significant as the workload. The workload, I believe, nowadays, especially in the banking sectors, they are working under pressure, under workload, and we can see here male, they are suffering from the workload more than females, and it is significant. And this is some of the research hypotheses were tested, and the presenteeism has an impact on a relationship, and there's an impact on a productivity. It was accepted, but workaholism, and it is a bit logical, it was rejected. Job satisfaction was accepted. The job demand as well was accepted. Overall poor health wasn't accepted, it was rejected. As depression was accepted, and it has a direct impact from presenteeism. The conclusion, we actually saw that very high responses were attending the workplace where they are suffering from unwell feelings, sickness, as well as this research actually studied a very few factors of presenteeism, which is the one we just discussed. So I suggest for the future studies, maybe they can focus more about the cause root of presenteeism. They can study the environment, the work environment, the work culture. All of these has a different factor that motivates presenteeism, which and also it will increase the occurrence of presenteeism, which will increase the cost of it and will cause us productivity loss. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. MashaAllah. Very interesting topic. So I will be going last, but I promise you I'll keep it really short so we can have the question answer sessions after that. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. My name is Maria Saberi. I've been with Ahliauniversitybh for the last 17 years. I just celebrated my 17th anniversary with Ahliauniversitybh in February. Yes. Thank you. Topic today is, what I'll be presenting is actually the first stage of a two-stage research. This is the result of the critical literature review done, where the next stage will be a quantitative investigation regarding the relationship between family support, education levels, and government support and women entrepreneurship in the MENA region. Now, what's interesting, we found that although governments in the MENA region are very keen on empowering women in the region for entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial acumen, we found many inconsistent results regarding the effectiveness of these governmental interventions or governmental support. And one of the reasons we argue that it could be these researchers or the government itself in the region is placed in a direct, let's say, direct support, or as a direct independent variable, if we talk statistics, with women entrepreneurial success. We're arguing that their governmental support or women entrepreneurial success is contingent mostly on a moderating effect of governmental support rather than a direct effect. And what I'm going to do, I just decided to skip all this and go directly to the model that we will be testing, and because this is all the literature that backs up what we are saying here. So directly to the model. One difference between governmental support and the two top impact factors on women entrepreneurial success in the MENA region is that the nature of governmental support is a temporary one, and it is conditional to that woman or the women having interest or wanting to start their business ventures, while educational and family support are an integral part of their lives. In the MENA region, family support plays one of the top impact on the women's business decisions, where they're absent of family support has been found to have very negative impact to the extent that these businesses could fail in this region. So family support is one of the reasons why we decided to go for testing family support and education level, because they are the top factors on women entrepreneurial success in the MENA region. Now, education level was interesting that most researchers focus on entrepreneurship education done by institutes, non-academic institutes, while research has shown that entrepreneurship skills actually are best developed during academic studies, mainly university studies. So, and that entrepreneurial skills, when women are educated through university or academic education, can have a great impact on their success and their sustainability of their entrepreneurial acumen. Therefore, in a nutshell, by placing the governmental support as a moderator, can help policymakers design new policies that would directly impact the already existing relations and have a more effective result and impact on the success of women entrepreneurs, rather than independently funding or supporting these businesses. Now, the reason why I jumped through all the previous statistics and information is because I know it's the last paper, and everyone just wants to take a break or ask your questions. But I assure you that what I just explained through this model is the heart of our research. And this can make a tremendous difference. And it can lift a lot of overwhelming load on governments, a load that is not really effective in many situations in the MENA region. And that's all for me. Thank you very much. We can go for the question answer session. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much for your great presentations. All our colleagues here from different universities and academies. My name is Doris Martin, the founder of Modern United Nations in Bahrain, and also I'm the board member of Bahrain Business Society. And I have another third hat, which is the Ambassador of Women in Tech Bahrain chapter. And the last and not least, I have my own business, which is the CEO of the Martin Consultancy. You tapped on something very important, which is women entrepreneurship. This is something passionate to me. I am the instructor for Cisco entrepreneurship course. And you mentioned that actually the effect of training the entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship program in universities is much better than academies. I'm
According to research.
Yeah.
Literature.
Based on my research, which is OECD, it claims that the academies are more effective than so basically academies like Cisco, or let's say Google, you have Microsoft startups. They are more effective because they look at both areas, not only the core skills, but also the mindset, and also they bring in the other accelerator programs, incubator programs, which is live evidence. And they have the boot camps, and I can go on. So I don't know where you got your reference from, but I got it from part of an international organization.
Yeah, a reminder that this research is a focus on the MENA region, mainly the Middle East and North Africa. So perhaps the companies you mentioned are more international and based.
But they're now based here also.
They are, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
and
that's
OECD
true.
has done the study for all. It's a global
are they
program.
at the reach of every single entrepreneur, woman entrepreneur?
As far as I know, you can, for instance, let's go for Temkeen. We have a great program that's the Temkeen. It's human capital, hub in Bahrain, and they're doing an excellent job in reaching out for all Bahraini citizens and even non-citizens who want to take these training courses. They can go online and apply. So you have these academies like Amazon, Cisco, you have Rubot, you have, I think, General Assembly. All these courses, all these academies do offer these courses for people who are in academic or not academic, but there's some requirements that they have to comply with. But thank you very much, Sabri, for an excellent
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
This
you.
will be taken into consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for those wonderful presentations. It's really fascinating. I've learned a lot this morning. I did want to ask a question to the project. Sorry, I've forgotten your name. About the plastic, the reused plastic, recycled materials, which looks amazing and very innovative. But I just wondered what attention had been paid to perhaps the unintended consequences of using, because you mentioned recycle practices and virgin plastic in perhaps encouraging the use of virgin plastic for something like this, but also potentially what about the microplastics that the erosion of the materials will create and then move into the water systems to create microplastic pollution and thus create all sorts of other health consequences and environmental consequences.
Yes, there is many consequences need to be well studied before going to consider this system as a main paving system. One of them also I will add to your discussion is the environmental impact when this plastic subjected to extreme temperature like the Gulf area. But the lucky part is asphalt is much more worse than plastics.
Well, I did think that too,
yes,
but again, do we want to be swapping a particular?
Yes, so it has a significantly reduction in such environmental impacts. But for sure, the microplastic is a very good, also interesting line to be included. Most of the 6 materials I presented here that we are investigating nowadays to be used could be micro and also the nanoparticles. So it's still under investigation, even in our campus, and also I have a good relationship with Delft University in Netherlands. They are working hardly in this direction. So thank you so much for raising this point. Thank you.
You had a question? Yes, here. In the front row.
Thank you very much. My question is for Dr. Constantina. I'm an educationist for a long time, and I have a PhD in education technology. Very interesting what you said, and the way I think the thing that we as educationists think of the new generation you're talking about, they are called technology native. They're born with technology. So this is one of the considerations we should put in our mind when we talk about technology native. Also, they are clickers. So they can't even spend a minute without clicking anything, even, clicking boards, whatever. The way they think is different than the way we think. We think in like slide ways. So I would challenge you and everyone, if we bring those kids here and do the presentation 1, 2, and 3, they won't stay here. They will leave the room, and I guarantee that. So I think the way we should consider when really providing them with activities, education activities, whatever, it should be short. And because they think in web-like thinking. So they don't stay in the place for a long time. The thinking or the short span of thinking, they have short span of thinking. So really they move quickly from there to there to there to there. That's a reality now. I think we should also consider it in our education as parents, as educators. And that's also what when we talk about extended reality, I think is one thing that we think about. That's my comments, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there a question, or you want me to?
Just comments if you have any.
But I was just going to say that if you look around the room, everybody's a clicker here. Just watch. And I challenge anyone to leave their phone away for 1 hour. Just go and do that.
Over here. Questions, and then go there.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much. It's really a very combined and different topics that really make us feel very active and don't want to use any mobiles. Anyway, commenting on you, Doctor, actually what we are trying to think of looking forward for ourselves as educators and as instructors, as teachers, on how to cope with the rapid exchanging. Actually, you mentioned something, and I was really not shocked when you mentioned that you joined in 2009, and you were thinking of those changes. So my question to you is, what we have to do ahead in the coming 10 years with this extremely changing and dynamic changing through COVID and the transformation of kids, those IT kids, and versus our knowledge as educators and coping with this change. So my question is, how we will move forward? For me, this is as a question.
You realize that, last year I was talking about this topic, how we can have technology integration to succeed in digital transformation. End of last year, the conversation was about the metaverse, how everybody has to build a digital campus and transfer all the business, including education, to the metaverse. Suddenly, end of the year, artificial intelligence became the main topic, ChatGPT and all the AI tools. So I really don't know what's going to happen next. But what I'm worried about, I see a lot of educational institutions embracing this artificial intelligence and the metaverse, if you like, without having gone this stage yet. Right? It's like it's a blessing you have in this part of the world. Okay, there is the money, there is the funding to embrace technology quickly, but maybe that's a curse as well sometimes because you go too fast. Okay, so I don't know what I'm worried about the future, especially with what's happening with artificial intelligence now, because it's been pushed to universities, is what kind of graduates you want to have. You want to have graduates who are just going to push buttons and do their job. When they go to the business out there, they're going to use ChatGPT to produce reports. Is this what the businesses want? What about creativity? What about innovation? What about something different? Because let's not forget, all this artificial intelligence is just some big database, some big data somewhere in a company, somewhere in the world, that is being fed to it and has restrictions. Even ChatGPT, if you know, this bot has certain restrictions. Again, it's not accurate at all. So wait and see. I don't know really, but
it's a long topic.
I'm just telling you my concern.
It's a long topic. Of
for
course,
the future
is
basically this one.
Yeah.
What kind of people you want to have? Do you want to have thinking individuals, or you want to have you want to have creators, or you want to have users?
Thank you.
So I think everybody needs to think about it before they start going and implementing all this in education.
If you allow me, Dr. Maria, I have a quick question to Dr. Abu Hassan. Doctora, I was really very much appreciating your presentation. Really, it is really touching the life, how we are living with the students. I have just one question, or two questions. This project, did you approach the government to in a collaboration, like the university is doing it as a community engagement? And the second question, sorry, is students are involved in this project with you, because I heard you are saying that I did this, so I wanted to know that the students they were engaged with this project, because really it's very, very impressive for us to know this.
Thank you very much. Really, for the two case studies until now, I didn't submit this research for the government, but it's my next stage, inshallah. It's starting research to collect all the environment and to prepare a proposal to submit it as a professional submission, inshallah, and to complete the submission for the government to be applied, as you said, not only in Jeddah, but we can complete it in all over, inshallah, KSA or other countries. Regarding the students, yes, exactly, because I'm teaching an urban course also, I'm trying to involve the student also in similar project. I give the students some researches as a theoretical to understand how they can apply it, and some students really do a small brief and a small research to understand this point with me when we are working in this case study. So really, I involved my students. I also, in all my courses, I love more to involve my students with my research. Alhamdulillah, they are participating with me. Thank you.
The lady over there. Oh, okay. She's been waiting. Inshallah.
It's okay? Yes. Actually, I just wanted to thank all of you. It's been an enriching session. Very proud of our own UBTs, Dr. Khalid and Dr. Marwa as well. I just wanted to say, in addition to being the Dean of the Business College in the University of Business and Technology, I'm also the General Supervisor of Business Development. So definitely we'll be taking forward the project of Dr. Marwa to the government level. Thank you, Ahliya University. You bring us closer together in Bahrain, where we hear our faculty members and what they're doing from different colleges. I also wanted to just comment on Ms. Sarah. When the doctor told you, Dr. Sarah, you said, inshallah, soon, but I'm not a doctor yet. I just wanted to tell you that you are a great model for a postgraduate student. I really see that you will be a doctor. You have all the qualities to be a doctor, and inshallah we'll come again to Bahrain and see you and see your students with you. Truly, you're an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Noor Al-Galal. I'm an undergraduate research assistant at Dirasat, which is Bahrain Center for Strategic International and Energy Studies. And I'm currently completing my law degree at the University of Leeds. So I have a question for Dr. Marwa. Oh, sorry, on a side note, thank you so much to all the panelists. Your presentations were excellent. Thank you so much. Very useful and very informative. Dr. Marwa, so obviously anyone who visits or anyone who lives in the Middle East is aware of the mass car culture, which has naturally resulted from 8 out of 12 months of the extreme heat that we experience. So Dr. Marwa, can you so you referred to sustainability throughout your presentation, but with regards to your proposals, I'm keen to understand the arguments or if there have been any feasibility studies to justify such a sizable expansion of public spaces, and obviously considering the activity and transportation cultures of GCC countries, whether or not it would be a sustainable allocation of resources. Thank you.
Yes, of course, this point taking into consideration while I'm making the research, taking the consideration of the extensions and expansions and increasing the activities, and also later on, inshallah, I will complete the studies to make a survey with the visitors of these places and make a social survey for them and for the needs they need to add in these case studies to be available in the future, inshallah. And also, of course, regarding also not only the activities, but also I am trying to add some environmental detailed study to calculate the percentage of the shaded area, to calculate, of course, or the number of the transportation, how much public transportation we need to increase. So, inshallah, this will be putting in my consideration in the next studies, inshallah.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
Thank you so much for a very informative presentation. My question is for Dr. Sabri. Can you just please elaborate more about the conditional governmental support that you mentioned in your model, please?
Yes. Sabri. You heard conditional?
Yes, when you talk about the family support, you
Yes,
know, the other curve, you know?
Yeah. It's that family support and education, and more emphasis on family support, they are there throughout these women's lifespan. while government support is sought mainly when these women want to pursue business ventures. Therefore, why not, instead of having government support, provide different types of support, be it financial or training or education, whatever, separate from the already existing two top strongest facilitators or emphasizers on these women's entrepreneurial success, which is family and education, to be a moderator in order to increase and enhance this relationship. So this will look as follows. When you go to policy making, the policies will shift from having a direct relationship just between government and the entrepreneurs to becoming more of a supporter of those existing relationships. For example, there are families, and by family I don't mean, for the women entrepreneurs, by family we don't only mean parents and siblings, but also spouse and the spouse family, the in-laws. Sometimes there is qualitative support, subjective support, but lacking of funding or financial support. If governments can, let's say, moderate these relationships that are already there, supporting women entrepreneurs through, let's say, integrating or complementing the fundings, complementing what is just missing from to boost that relationship, we are hypothesizing that it will be more effective and the results will be better off than separating the governments. There has been one research, I don't recall the researcher's name, where they studied 14 influencers on women entrepreneurial success. One of the 14 was the government support. And they noticed that governmental support yet affected 8 out of those 14 facilitators or impact factors, amongst those being family support and education. So since it's already showing that government has, yes, it has a direct impact, but it also can moderate.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So honored guests, we will have 10-minute coffee break and we will commence session 2 after the break. So see you all in 10 minutes and thank you. Thank you. Thank you, presenters. Thank you all. Welcome back, dear guests, ladies and gentlemen. Now that we are nourished and settled down, we will continue our exciting agenda and session number 2. Session number 2 is on sustainable growth and efficiency and will be chaired by Dr. Adil Sari from Ahliauniversitybh. I would like to call the following presenters to the stage, please. Abdel Nasser Hatemi, Nawaf Al-Ghanem, Hamad Talha, Mariam Al-Zayani, Sayyid Mohammed Faisal, Ahmed Khalil Khan, Dr. Vinod Devi, and Dr. Raju V. Can you please come to the stage, dear presenters?
Shall we start? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'd like to welcome you all to this session. I know it's a time, food time, but we will try to finish within, inshallah, 1 hour. So I'd like to welcome our speakers. We have we should have 4 presentations or 4 speakers. And before we start with our first speaker, Dr. Abdel Nasser, and we have next Nawaf, Dr. Nawaf.
And we would like to call also Muhammad Talha or Taha. And the presentation number 10. If they are here, please come to this session. So, sustainable growth. When we talk about sustainable growth, we talk about how to make use of resources, not only for us, for our own survival, but for the survival of the future generation. Today we are going to listen to Mr. Abdel Nasser. He is going to share with us his article about cryptocurrency. And Nawaf Al-Ghanem next will talk about oil and gas industry in Bahrain, networking leadership. Now we'd like to welcome our first speaker, Abdel Nasser. You will have 15 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. My name is Abdel Nasser Hatami, and I am, no, this is the other one. This is not my topic. Okay, thank you. The time has not started yet, right? No.
But I started. No worry.
I'm just. Yeah. This is called operational risk in finance. You need to always have a backup. So, thank you. Yes, that's it. Thank you very much. Once again, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. My name is Abdel Nasser Hatami. I'm working at the United Arab Emirates University. The paper is written jointly with my colleague, Yusuf Al-Khatib, which also working at the United Arab Emirates University, Department of Mathematics, and I am in finance. I would like also to once again thank you, the organizers of this conference, for the given opportunity for presenting the paper. I also was very impressed by the things that have been presented so far. Equality is very important issue. In fact, there was a philosopher said that if you educate a boy, you educate a person, but if you educate a girl, you educate a generation. That's perhaps also very true. There was also a Kurdish leader that once said that a nation can only be free if their women are free, in fact. And I was very impressed by changes that are taking place, especially in Saudi Arabia, of course, and it looks very good and impressive. Anyway, the topic that I'm talking about is here that, as you are aware of, new technology, especially based on blockchain, it is revolutionizing almost everything. Probably things will soon change enormously. All this intermediation probably will disappear, especially in financial markets and all that. Probably things will change dramatically. One of the things that we going to, my presentation will consist of the following: a brief introduction followed by a literature review and mathematical equation. For that purpose, some solution, some simulation results, and after that, some conclusions, of course. So, cryptocurrencies are, of course, used enormously nowadays. They are based on blockchain technology. Since it's new technology, programming is, of course, an integral part of it. And, of course, according to Lebanese philosopher and financial economist, probably Nassim Taleb, their currently exists around 10,000 different types of cryptocurrencies, of course. The most famous one is Bitcoin, based on market value capitalization, of course. So as you can see, based on the information that we had the first week in June 2000, the market value of this cryptocurrency were around 900 billion US dollars. So you can see in terms of value, so it makes a huge impact despite of all this hesitation. I mean, still it has not been established, it's very volatile, very risky, and all these things. So, of course, a very active area of research from different points of view: finance, technology, innovation, in terms of coding, in terms of mathematical modeling, and all these, using stochastic calculus and all these things. So, very active, but to our best knowledge, at least from finance point of view, the existing literature mainly consists of empirical studies. They either look at potential portfolio diversification possibilities, can cryptocurrencies be used for hedging purposes or not, how they can estimate potential volatility that is very high, and of course whether the market is informationally efficient or not. So quite empirical one. And then we thought probably there is also need for some, at least some attempt to suggest a stochastic differential equation that can be used for modeling the potential price of a cryptocurrency. That also takes into account certain properties. For instance, three properties characterize these cryptocurrencies. They are very volatile, very risky, as we know. Probably the most risky financial asset I have ever seen. They are basically regime shift takes place. Sometimes the market is quite calm, sometimes it's very suddenly changes up and down. So there are certain different structure breaks that take place during the period. Another thing that also per construction is that the cryptocurrencies are illiquid, because for those that are in finance know that one of the fundamental assumptions is that the buyer cannot affect the price when they buy. But the way cryptocurrencies are constructed per definition, the more trade takes place, the quantity changes. So directly there is in fact that assumption that is used in finance is not valid. So the cryptocurrencies are in fact not characterized by liquidity, but rather illiquid. The buyer can in fact affect the quantity. And this also, of course, these issues need to be taken into account. And here we provide a humble attempt that might take all these three properties into account. So we will have also provide some simulation results later as well. If you look at the literature, there are some interesting literature reviews for those that are interested. For instance, by Fang and et al. And also Mara and Singh, for instance, provide another interesting surveys of articles that have been published on this topic. Now we talk about equality. In fact, one of the major contributions from finance point of view is by a lady, Wire, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, from Ireland, in fact, or Dinberry also from 2016, two papers that are cited a lot, in fact. So, yeah, it talks about what is the economic mechanism for pricing of these cryptocurrencies. Some cryptocurrencies with the largest market value is, of course, Bitcoin. That is, it was introduced by this Japanese gentleman Nakamoto in 2008. In 2009, it was introduced. And this paper also is very interesting because it's just 9 pages, consists of all the technology existed practically. What he did, he combined it and he made some suggestion and he introduced Bitcoins. And of course, one of the most cited papers, around 25,000 citations so far. So it's a very good example, in fact, about what research should be about in terms of idea. Now, of course, there are some other papers about whether these financial assets are characterized by crises and bubbles, which sometimes burst which they find, of course, it is the case. As we talked about this, Dieberg demonstrates empirically that cryptocurrency, in fact, can be very useful for hedging purposes. So they can reduce risk in that case. Arguhart talks about market inefficiency of cryptocurrencies. By that, it means practically it's very speculative. It's also possible to predict the price and make abnormal returns, as they call it, arbitrage. So markets for these cryptocurrencies is not efficient, according to them. So Lucy suggests an index, how it can be used for measuring uncertainty of this. Is used quite a lot, even though it's quite new. Binomi, for instance, investigates whether there are cryptocurrencies currently are used in 137 countries, including GCC countries. So it seems that despite hesitation, still legally speaking, more and more countries are making use of it. For instance, I think it was last year in Saudi Arabia, the government made a $2 billion contract with a company to introduce blockchain, for instance, in the country. So this seems to be a big part of investment in many countries, of course. So cryptocurrencies are also very energy incentive, and of course, based on the current technology, then despite its positive sides, there might be some environmental effect. Of course, this might not be sustainable, so something probably needs to be done about it. They use also, of course, this asymmetric causality test that we suggested. They say, for instance, the effect of positive changes are in fact different than the negative effects. So when markets are falling, the effect is stronger compared to when it is rising. And then, of course, one way to remedy this environmental negative impact is probably to introduce some form of taxes that can be imposed on the transactions and thereby reduce the potential impact. Another article based on using the same asymmetric causality test, Lee et al. Showed that the dynamic interaction between oil and Bitcoin. So, of course, another major variable in not only in finance but in the energy sector and industry is oil, and that is also, there is a dynamic interaction between that and cryptocurrencies according to them also. So we see probably all this indicate that these variables are really becoming more and more important. That is the cryptocurrencies. In terms of portfolio diversification, of course, together with some colleagues, we look at it that if an investor includes a cryptocurrency into the underlying portfolio diversification, if you use the standard methods suggested by Marco, you construct the portfolio that way, there is no potential diversification benefits to the investor. But if you use the new method that we suggested that combines the risk and return in the optimization problem, in fact, it shows that the optimal portfolio created, in fact, can be, the potential diversification benefits increase enormously if you also have a cryptocurrency as an asset in your portfolio. So the current study based on another paper by my colleague that recently have been published, but this with option pricing for the other assets like stocks and all that. So here is more about cryptocurrency. Another change here is also that in fact in the we explicitly include the illiquidity issue in the model for cryptocurrencies, why that's probably not an issue for stock markets. Okay, so I will be brief, hopefully to finish it fast before I have to do some push-ups by the chairman, perhaps. Now, mathematical equation, so here we define C as the denoting the price for the cryptocurrency during the period, starting from, say, 0 to maturity, denoted by capital T. And then, of course, here we assume that the exchange rate is between the cryptocurrency in terms of the US dollar. Of course, you could introduce in other currencies like euro and all that, but we just made that assumption because US dollar, of course, is the more prominent currency. Assuming that mu is the expected value, of the asset. Sigma is its volatility. And then, of course, we introduce the price impact factor that will capture the illiquidity issue by lambda. And then theta will represent the number of assets that the investor has in the cryptocurrency. So the impact factor price effect that what will measure in illiquidity issue is basically lambda multiplied by the change of theta, the amount of the cryptocurrencies that are traded, basically increase or decrease, of course. So we then mathematically the equation consists of this the change in the DC represent the change in the cryptocurrency rate. So we explicitly include a Markovian measure denoted by Z. So in order to allow for structure breaks. So as we know, of course, we know structure breaks take place. A lot of things happen that the parameters change across time. For instance, you have organizational changes, you have people's different generations preferences change across time and their behavior change. We have new technologies, we have crises, natural crisis, human-made crisis, many of these kind of things that in fact result in that the underlying parameter can change, and hopefully these effects will be captured by this Markov chain process. We also explicitly, in terms of volatility, instead of just assuming sigma, then we extend the value there. That is a function of both the structure shift by the Markov process, once again, and then also a G function that explicitly takes into account the higher volatility of this underlying asset. And then, of course, we also measure the illiquidity issue, the last term as was denoted by the lambda, which is also multiplied by delta t. And theta. Theta is once again the number of the assets that the underlying investor has in this cryptocurrency. And of course, mathematically speaking, the initial value has to be positive, C has to be positive. That's really what was happened. For instance, when the Bitcoin was introduced at the beginning, it was around $200 probably. It went up to more than $60,000, I think, as you can see, probably last year. Now it's a little down, but it's huge, in fact. It changes so much, as you see. Then the G function is defined as the following. C's are, of course, the parameters, 4 of them. E is the exponential function, of course, and sign as a function of time. Based on some simulations also, it showed that this really captures the potential crisis. Of course, depending on the parameters you choose, you can really capture any state of the economy. It could be normal, crisis, good times, hard times, whatever it might be. So here, 4 parameters. And then, of course, if you assume theta be the number of assets that the investor has, that it has both a deterministic impact, which is for the first term, and then a stochastic term, epsilon probably multiplied by delta b, which is a Brownian function. That will cover also the stochastic part. So we have both deterministic part as well as a stochastic one, which seems to probably accord with the way markets operate in reality. So, and then of course, if we assume certain values for these parameters, if we say, and then we can find, in fact, this solution that is presented by equation 2-4. And then the proof is, of course, is available there on the paper. I'm not going to take your time, but is welcome. Any questions later on, comments are welcome, of course, regarding this. So let's go through some, before I also present some simulation results, I would like to mention that in some cases, there is risk that the price that you obtain via this equation, differential equation, stochastic differential equation, might not result in a positive value. It could be 0 or below 0. So of course, financially speaking, that would mean, it makes sense financially, because if the value is 0, it means the cryptocurrency has gone to bankruptcy. And that also happens because around 400 of them, in fact, have disappeared in the market, of those that were mentioned. And we look at it also mathematically. The condition for a positive value is that, as you can see, that the left side should be at least equal to the other side. If that condition is not fulfilled, it will be either 0 or negative. And we also investigated mathematically the probability for that, that it will be a positive value is 99.99 almost. So it's 0.1% that there risk that the currency can go to bankruptcy. And that seems also to be in accordance with reality. So once again, for all these results available on the paper. And then we simulated the model. For instance, the black one just gives the continuous Markov switch process, while the red one is the value that is defined by the model. It really seems to be similar to reality, the way the currency price operate. For instance, sometimes very high value, as you can see the first stage, and then you have some calm one in between, and then you have another volatility. So the next regime alternates again, in fact, and then something probably at the end, almost 3 in between. So it seems that at least 3 regimes take place. And that's what really we take into account in our model. Of course, mathematically speaking, you can allow for more regime changes, but the more you do, the more challenging the problem becomes. Of course, 2 minutes, okay. So if you also compare it with reality with real data, currency, for instance, for last year from November to August, this is a big problem. You can see really that the almost three regimes exist, right? The first one, and then in the middle, and then the third one almost looks at to the first one, and then you have the comparison. So it seems also really to capture what is happening in reality. So I briefly describe again here that is very active research area. Theoretically, not much has been done. To our best knowledge, this is the first attempt to really suggest a differential equation for stochastic differential equation for this purpose that especially takes into account these properties of cryptocurrencies: high risk, regime shifts, and illiquidity. And each term is explicitly taken into account in the underlying model. And then, of course, we still are working on this. More things need to be done, of course. One of the things that could be for future studies that we are working on still without any success. Some of you might have better suggestion probably, but providing a closed form solution for this stochastic differential equation. We proved that the solution can exist, that is unique. But whether this is closed form or not, that is still an issue, because really people want to have the closed form solution that it will be much easier to use. And of course, if that is found also, it could be used for option pricing in cryptocurrencies, right? Given its speculative character, probably some form of derivative securities are needed really by the investors to deal with this. But for defining and introducing option pricing of cryptocurrencies, then the required condition is, of course, to have a closed form solution. So I better stop here. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Abdel Nasser. High risk, high return. And we have heard many stories about cryptocurrencies, but we will open the Q&A session later. We welcome now our next speaker, Dr. Nawaf Al-Ghanem. You will have 15 minutes, please. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Nawaf Al-Ghanem. I'm presenting a joint paper between myself and Dr. John Mendy from University of Lincoln. The topic, as you see, it is related to the controversial energy transition sector, which is basically talking about fossil fuel and its impact on the global economy, global environment, and the transition of achieving and addressing the SDGs, and I'm talking about the 17 SDGs, mapping the fossil fuel, between brackets, oil and gas sector, into addressing those challenges. First of all, the introduction, the oil and gas industry is obligated to address the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, all 17 of them, And as agreed and by the member countries during the COP16 under the UNFCCC, under the Paris Agreement 2016. Addressing all SDGs would be challenging, especially for the oil and gas firms, which are facing extreme challenges to address those challenging SDGs, which has been imposed by the United Nations. Such pressure calls for those firms to address the challenges by implementing a sort of a sustainable leadership approach to address and embed those changes into their core business. The research problem, the envisions of implementing SDGs in the oil and gas industry would require strong, effective leadership engagement at multiple organizational levels. The leadership becomes a fundamental aspect to examine the cruciality of the impacts of how SDGs are built in and integrated into the core business of those companies. This requires oil and gas companies to practice leadership at different organization level and sometimes address multiple SDGs simultaneously, because there are SDGs who are positively correlated to the energy sector and negatively correlated. And this is the controversy where the leadership plays a very vital role into addressing and integrating those challenges together. The oil and gas companies should practice a form of sustainable leadership to address and integrate SDGs to core business. The methodology, we've used an constructive epistemological approach, interpretism, theoretical perspective, a qualitative approach, and the analysis was based on thematic analysis. The data collection was based primarily on semi-structured face-to-face interviews with executives and senior members of companies operating in the oil and gas sector within Bahrain. Secondary was by different research and studies related to the topic itself. The UN SDG, and as I mentioned earlier, the SDGs has both negative and positive correlation towards the oil and gas sector. So as you see, there are two segments of SDGs: those that are interested in anti-poverty and the well-being of the societies and the human beings, and that is related to SDG 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. And those are positively correlated to the oil and gas sector. Now we come to those that are negatively correlated, and those are the ones in green and blue. So it's SDG 3, 6, 13, 14, 15. And they are negatively correlated. This is why those organizations, and we're talking strictly about energy companies, are to find ways through sustainable leadership to address those positively and negatively correlated in coordination. Because unless you address all SDGs, these SDGs are interrelated. So the success of addressing and implementing one SDG does not mean that you are succeeding in another SDG. So there has to be sort of an interconnection and integration between the implementation of SDGs. We'll just run through the slide. The UN SDGs and the oil and gas industry. So as we can see, the oil and gas industry is a main source to supply sustainable, affordable energy. And it is controversial in a way or another, but let me tell you from an experience, you will not be able to produce clean energy, green or blue hydrogen, without having sort of fossil fuel impact towards the ignition of the development of those sectors. here lies the challenge, is how to make the oil and gas sector a greener sector. And that is, I'm taking it to a different paper that I published, basically talks about those oil and gas companies which has gone through a lot of, let's say, glossy glossy years of getting those revenues when the prices were high, has the potential of creating a parallel carbon capture economy where you just get to capture those emissions and re-inject them into producing more of a greener and cleaner economy. This makes the oil and gas industry the major contributor of global development and growth. And I remember SDG 8 talks about the need of providing affordable energy at affordable price, at a sustainable supply, which really impacts the combating the zero hunger and zero poverty and education and gender equality. So they are all related. The main idea is how to make an industry which is labeled as a polluting industry being more environment friendly. The economic development and growth are negatively correlated to preservation of the ecosystems, and strictly we are talking about preserving cleaner water, cleaner air, SDG 13, which is fighting the climate change, which is the biggest topic, and 14, 15, and 16. The oil and gas industry direct linkage and contributions to SDGs therefore calls for sustainable leadership practice through which energy companies' activities and actions are integrated into their core businesses. Theorizing network leadership, and this is the main idea that this paper is talking about, is developing network leadership during the time where organizations are implementing radical changes, and how implementing network leadership would lead to the identifying of more transformational, sustainable network leadership. And this is the contribution of this paper. The concept of network leadership here emerged as a result of growing organizational challenges like those posed by the UN SDGs on the oil and gas companies, which requires leadership practice at multiple organization levels and across organizational boundaries. This paper suggests that network leadership is a suitable leadership approach in the successful implementation of multiple organizational activities to address those contradicting sustainable development goals. And I'm talking about those that are related toward more economic development and providing sustainable source of energy, and those that are talking about preserving of maintaining ecosystem balances, preserving the environment, and most importantly, combating climate change. The findings. The overall reaching findings of this paper were the key elements in the conceptualization of sustainable network leadership. The transformational sustainable network leadership was conceptualized by the attributes and characteristics of sustainable network leadership, which we'll be discussing in the next slide. These are the findings. So this paper identifies that the sustainable network leadership concept is based on having stronger ties between different organization clusters and different organizations to address multiple organizational initiatives when it comes to addressing the let's say opposing SDGs, having strategic and holistic view of the organization's perspective as well as the whole industry, and then adapting to cultural diversity and distributing the roles and the management delegation based on based on special traits of each individual within the organization, and having a holistic perspective about where the energy is going, how does it address those challenges imposed by the SDGs. And the network leadership has to be based on knowledge, not on hierarchy, and not on the let's say the position within the classical traditional organizational hierarchy. The required attributes are having those network actors with not special, but with really effective communication skills. Those actors that are willing to share knowledge, those with vision about the future of the energy sector. How is the energy sector going to transit from being solely dependent on fossil fuel towards having a balance of clean energy, solar, hydrogen-based, which is picking up within the region. We are hearing a lot about NEOM being the new hub of hydrogen. Abu Dhabi, Masdar, we are hearing a lot about other neighbor GCCs, which are really directing the revenues and the margins that has been extracted from the fossil fuel toward creating a parallel and a cleaner energy.
2 minutes.
Innovation, personal traits, and influence. And the contribution, we've discussed the contribution. It's identifying a transformational, sustainable network leadership. That's a definition of network leadership as defined in this paper. And this is the sustainable development leadership. Dr. Adil, I'll just go through the slide and that's it.
Okay.
Sustainable network leadership evolves around the notion of positioning different networks and change actors based on their capacity to lead, exchange their knowledge, effectively communicate, and comply with SDGs requirement to transition plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nawaf. Please have a seat, please. Very interesting topic. You talk about network leadership, oil and gas, and link it to sustainable development. There is some contradiction. I'm going to ask you later about it. Now we will open the floor for any question. Please raise your hand. We will have 10 minutes for any question. Please. Just raise your hand if you have any question about cryptocurrency and yeah, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for both of those talks. It was really interesting. I'm also very interested in the framing of the gas and oil and as being providing some benefits as well as some disadvantages. Well, a lot of disadvantages from my perspective, and inevitably I'm going to say that, aren't I? However, I'm also wondering to what extent it would be perhaps a little bit not ingenuous, but it's difficult to, for instance, if the profits, when you say one of the SDGs that is being promoted through the continuation of the oil and gas industry, maybe not just in Bahrain but generally, is about the reduction of poverty, and quality education you ported out, and gender equality. My question would be, if that was the case, and as we've seen the huge profits from oil and gas and the rest of it, how is that not already alleviating poverty and producing the sorts of gender equality and the rest of it that we're seeking to achieve? And is it not just as possible to invest in sustainable energies that allow us to achieve those things without compromising the environment? So I suppose it's not just about Bahraini oil and gas, but just about the bigger picture, particularly in the UK at the moment, because I guess, we see the massive profiteering of Shell, where clearly if there was more effective progressive tax systems in place, then perhaps some of that money could be captured to alleviate some of the issues that exist. So I suppose I just wanted perhaps some more discussion or elaboration on some of the ones that you say or suggest are being promoted for the oil and gas industry, the SDGs?
Thank you. Well, your comment is not a question; it's a comment. I think. Yeah. Well, see, we have to admit that that this sector is a controversial discussion between the producing and processing countries and consumers. But let me tell you this: there hasn't been any proven scientific inputs and studies that talks about having a cleaner. There isn't anything called purely clean energy. And that's because if we would be talking about solar, what are we going to do with the solar panels? How are they going to be disposed? So there is a big issue. But again, talking about the revenues and the margins that has been incurred by talking about international companies, that has not been directed toward creating a parallel, cleaner environment 20 or 30 years back. And that was because it was just recently until this topic became a hot topic under the UN. And I remember that during 2016 and 17, there wasn't much talk about climate change because it used to be global heating and then it was to climate change, and now the tension is less. But definitely, the whole world is talking about why not clearly create a parallel carbon capture economy where you just invest more toward capturing emissions and recycling them, converting them into products and consumables that are demandable by societies and by economies. And at the same time, why not create a different initiative where you invest more on the quality of education and invest more into centers that fight those diseases. So it's a big topic to discuss. But this is just only one of the series of papers that are published. That we are taking it sector by sector. So we talked about the climate change, but it's not only climate change. There is a huge gap between the gender representation in the not the oil and gas industry, but the whole industrial sector. Talking about steel, aluminum, chemicals, whatever. So we thought of highlighting those on this sector and then completing them to other sectors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any question? Okay, fine. You have question? Yeah, please.
Hi, good afternoon. It's for Dr. Abdel Nasser. Doctor, you mentioned about the cryptocurrency, and the research was, as you said, very short, 9 pages. What this reflects that it's not yet so much clear about the crypto is a very high volatile and can become illiquid at any time, right? So for those investors who might lose their investment, it's not so much sure that according to the research and the equations, I believe that we need to have more of awarenesses for the people who are going to deal with this. So do you think this is as a future, is it going to be a good investment for those who deal in currencies?
Thank you very much for the point, relevant point that you are raising. I can at least say personally, I have not invested in any cryptocurrency yet. It's very risky. I think it has a lot of potential in the futures when it is well established, when the legal issue have been clarified, when the structure is there, where the technology safety is there, then probably it will be useful. But at this time, it's really very risky. So what we did in this model is our one important question is, of course, what should be the optimal rate between US dollar and Bitcoin, say? So we have formulas for other assets, but we don't have it for cryptocurrency. So the attempt here is, inshallah, if the closed form solution is found, then we could find, theoretically speaking at least, a fair value with regard to the dollar. So if it is, then we can compare it with the true value in the market. If the market value is higher than the one the model suggests, then obviously it's overvalued. If it is lower, then it is undervalued. So hopefully it will give us an indication what is the fair value really. And I think we have not reached that yet. But I think this is the future. There are advantages, for instance, because it's not politically motivated currency. So that can resolve a lot of problems in terms of efficiency, of course, storage and all that. There are a lot of advantages. But as you mentioned also, given the current situation and the risk, probably we have to wait and wait for the development. However, regarding the technology safe blockchain, it is already happening even in GCC countries, in the United Arab Emirates, among our Saudi Arabia. It is almost everything now. The way stocks are traded, it becomes intermediators are gone more or less, and more direct trading between buyer and seller. So all this efficiency, the way things are recorded, the way the administration is done, and all these things, I think it is already revolutionizing everything. And in the future, it is going to be part of our life, I think. In terms of other things, there is also still more, the way I believe at least, there is need for more technological progress because the security at the current stage is also an issue. But probably in the future, when the nanotechnologies are, this could also solve some other problems. So that's at least my opinion about it. And then, if I may, I have a minute, add just one anecdote about this. When I, together with my colleague, we were writing, and we were really struggling, we couldn't find the solution, we were very concentrated. Suddenly my colleague got a call. And then he was said, sorry, I have to really answer it. I said, of course, go ahead, but he said it's so important. I said, who is it? Is the dean calling? He said, no, much higher. Is it the president of the university? No. And I said, probably is the minister of higher education. Still no. Is it the president of the country? I wondered. He said, no. And then I wondered, God, who it can be? Then he said, it is my wife. I really have to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Before we close this session, no question, I have just a quick question. In this region, what is the future of cryptocurrency? You have done very beautiful work and yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you. Is related to what we talked about. I think not only in the region, but probably in most countries in the future. As we said, already in 137 countries, legally speaking, it is allowed to make use of this kind of currencies. But due to its nature in terms of volatility, risk, in terms of security and all that, is a very speculative currency right now, right? So that part need to really be dealt with. Of course, there are a lot of investors. Some make a lot of money, but a lot of people also lose a lot of money. So it's very risky one. Probably is not, the current value usually is not based on the fundamentals, I would say. Until that is established in the future, it might take a little time, but I think sooner or later probably it will be part of life.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nawaf. In general, let's talk about the oil and gas in general, network leadership. At the same time, sustainable development. Any contradiction, if you can you highlight the contradiction about these things in general, not in Bahrain?
Yes, thank you very much. And there is a big contradictions between the future of let's say the energy sector as a whole worldwide, because you're talking about the need of continuing the supply of affordable energy, and at the same time you would like to preserve the ecosystem balances and combat climate change. So there is a lot of contradiction. Network leadership basically is what we suggest to practice as a leadership approach to be able to execute different transformation initiatives towards achieving number of initiatives simultaneously in those contradiction areas. So that's the overall idea.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
To conclude, sustainable development is about managing the environment in order to meet human basic needs. Action, I think, needs to be taken to reduce the risk. We talk about the risk in general or of environmental damage on human well-being. I would like to thank our speakers, Dr. Abdul Nasser and Dr. Nawaf, and thank you all. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will read.
Welcome once again to the 6th Equal Opportunities Conference. It has been nice having you all here. We hope the conference has been beneficial and fruitful. To close the conference for the day, I would like to call upon Professor Mukhtar Al-Hashimi, the VP of Academic Affairs at Ahliauniversitybh, to present us with the closing remarks and future highlights. Professor Mukhtar, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. I know it's the end of the day and everybody is looking forward to great lunch, but that's, I would like to give you in a 5-minute, the closing remarks for this conference. First of all, I would like to thank you all and thanks our founding president, Professor Abdullah Al-Hawaj, for creating a culture of research for the last 20 years plus. Also our president, Professor Mansour, thank you for great leadership. Ahliauniversity's strategic plan reflected on 3 pillars. The first pillar is the teaching, second is the research, and the third is community engagement. We could see today is a great examples that we have engaged the community. We also have done excellent research work. Ahliauniversity records when it comes to research is one of the best in the country. Today, without doubt, we have seen an outstanding leadership of how bringing collaborative effort internationally, regionally, and locally, bringing every one of you guys, as well as our partner, UPT, and Brunel's, our partners in collaborative research. Thank you all for making it possible. Without you, we were not able to do it excellent, better than this. Today, this conference is the 6th Equal Opportunity, and in this conference, we have received 200 papers, and the acceptance rate was 60%. We had 150 papers accepted. What does it mean? It has gone through a thorough evaluation through the scientific committee. Now, also this conference papers will be put together in a proceeding, and that will be published with Scopus ranking. We need to give a gratitude to all our international partners, speakers, and every one of you who have done excellent work to make this excellent conference. Now, we need to ask ourselves where we go next. Every year when we end this session, in a conference. We take the challenge of making the next conference much better, and always the ceiling, there is no limit for success. So what we need to do, we need to push the bar higher and great achievement for the upcoming conference. Now, each one of you can participate with us in giving us an idea of how we can take it to the upcoming conference, new ideas, anything you have. Please speak to the organizers, give your thoughts on it so we can study it and we can incorporate it. For me, I will tell you, for the upcoming conference, we are going to make sure we focus on applied research and commercializations, solution research to the society and decision makers of the country. Today, we see a lot of organization as well as government decision makers are waiting for us as a researcher to give them a solution for practical and problematic problems they are facing. So I call you today in making sure that the upcoming conference you will present more of an applied research to present a solution for the society that we live in. Not to forget that each one of us here have the responsibility in taking their research and making sure to be commercialized. Create an added value for your research. We need to create an economy that economy is built on your research finding. Today, the governments are looking forward for us to participate and contribute for their problems, as well as the private organization and public organization. So at this minute, in less than 5 minutes, my talk, I would like to thank all the organizing committee and Ahliya University leadership once again, and the president and the faculty who make it possible. Also, for each one of you guys who presented their research, you had made us part of your success. Please come along with us for next year. We'd love to see you, and thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mukhtar. And now for the Best Paper Awards. But before we commence the Best Paper Awards, we'd like to take a moment of silence for the victims of the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Stand. Please be seated. And now for the Best Paper Award ceremony, I would like to invite Professor Abdullah Al-Hawaj, Professor Mansour Al-Ali, and Dr. Isra to the stage to present the awards to the keynote speakers and participants and the Best Paper Awards. Can you please come to the stage? Big round of applause, please. And Professor Alam, please, can you join us on stage?
Thank you very much. We would like to start appreciating our keynote speakers. So I would like to call Professor Mary Richard from Brunel University, London. Thank you. Our second keynote speaker is Professor Udo Rendel from University Management Research and Innovation, IMC University of Applied Sciences. I believe Dr. Haneen is no longer here. They just left. Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We can give it to Dr. Marwa on her behalf. Okay. Then Dr. Iona Piska from Brunel University, London. Thank you. I would like also to hand on some appreciations for our session chairs, Dr. Mohammed Al-Kashmi, and our external session chair, Dr. Shimli Pichon. Thank you. And now we would be starting calling the Best Paper Awards. The first paper goes to Leila Mallas and George Samour for the presentation titled The Obvious Foreseen Effects of Machine Replaced Humans in Society. Best Paper Award. Yes. أعطيها أي واحدة. أعطيها أي واحدة حبيبتي. أعطيها البيضة حق الصورة بعدين أعطيها. Constantine. It's fine, thank you. The next one goes for Costantina Andino for the paper titled Technology Integration and Digital Transformation in Post-COVID-19 Hybrid Education.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
هذه نفسها البناية. عندك واحدة فاضية؟ The third one goes to Professor Udo Brindel for the paper titled IMC University of Applied Science in CRIMS. I think there is an issue there. Yeah, but thank you very much. So we will be fixing your certificate. Yeah, we know. بعد في صبري في خولية. Yeah. بنعطي واحدة ثانية. The next certificate goes to Ayman Hassan, Arizo Haraf, and Wa'il Abdullah for the paper titles Exploring Small and Medium Enterprises, Expectation of Electronic Payment in Kuwait. واحدة. And the last Best Paper Award goes to Marwa Abu Hassan for the research titled Sustainable Urban Street Design in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. No, I don't know. Right. We now would like to award the Best published research dissertations by master's students. The first one goes to Aisha Sharif, Nagham Khalid, and Professor Mohammed Al-Shekli for the dissertation title, or the paper title, Novel Coronavirus Disease, COVID-19, towards a new design for all-in-one smart system. No. Okay.
Thank you.
The second research is by Sarah Siadi on her research title, The Impact of Pre-Esteem on Employers' Productivity from a Gender Perspective, from University College Bahrain. That one had falling. The next one goes to Mary Yaqub, Adlim Khalid, and Zakiya Sanat for the research title Corporate Governance in Digital Era of Ahliya University. بعد في ثنتين. يعطيهم إياهم فاضيين. خلوها عند الدكتور. خلوها عند الدكتور. Okay, we will repeat it. Thank you. And the following one goes to Shahad Umar for analyzing the effect of using recycled, concentrated, aggregated new construction project in Bahrain by the George Washington University in collaboration with Ahliya.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And the last one goes to Yusuf Ajur for the research title Utilizing of a solar power in recycling technology, a case study of Bahrain Data Center by the George Washington in collaboration with Ahliya University. Thank you very much. Okay. Marwa, yeah. Aye. Allah. Khalas? Okay, I would like to thank you all for your attendance today, and I would like to invite you for lunch. Thank you very much. The lunch at 10th floor. Yeah, please. Join us for lunch at the 10th floor. Thank you. Thank you.